Chapter 820. He is quite young. The white-haired male sword master looked downwards. He revealed a grin. By the side, Forefather Tian, you also noticed Dongbo Shuang. He chuckled. That time when I created 5 cosmoses, the cosmos epoch of yours and ancestor devil in the starting cosmos was quite amazing, giving birth to the 2 of you. But after that it became ordinary. This Dongbo Shuang was able to get through the golden-robed disciple trial within the cosmos, meaning that he has quite the potential. Sword Master nodded. Sword Master and Ancestor Devil were naturally biased towards this junior that came from his hometown cosmos. Hence, Sword Master came to participate in the convention this time, to see how strong this junior was. Let's begin. Forefather Tian Yu suddenly said. His voice was grand and resounded across the entire hidden world field. He, Sword Master, and the other Primal Chaos Hall Masters and Inner Hall Elders began drinking and chatting. To them, this was a gathering. Usually, everyone had their own matters to attend to. Such a convention was a good opportunity for them to gather and see which juniors had potential. And below, on the many stone pillars, the true God disciples were already accumulating their power. Senior disciple Brother Chen Tao, please. A figure flew out of the stone pillar and took the initiative to challenge. Humph. Another violet-robed disciple who was challenged snorted coldly before flying out to accept the challenge. There were rules in the true God disciple ranking battle too. Every disciple could at most challenge those 20 ranks higher than him. There was no limit to the number of challenges. But if one lost 3 times, he would no longer have the chance to challenge again. And if one was challenged and failed, it would not be counted as lost 3 times. If one won, he would occupy the position of the victor. The loser would move back by 1 position. Like those ranked below 700, they would have to challenge those 20 ranks higher than them. In order to kill their way to the first position, they would have to fight at least 30 battles. And with so many true God disciples present, they could challenge one another. Hence, there would be many battles. It was normal for a true God disciple ranking battle to last for 10 years. Naturally, as for the spectators, be it Forefather Tian Yu, Sword Master, the Primal Chaos Palace Masters, the Inner Hall Elders, or the other Outer Hall Elders, or the true God disciples who were not qualified to participate in the battle, a mere 10 years was not worth mentioning to them. Senior Brother Chi, please. A cold and stern voice was heard. Immediately, whether it was the large number of spectating disciples, inner and outer palace elders, or the golden-robed and purple-robed disciples on the stone pillars, most of them cast their gazes over. This was because Senior Brother Chi was a golden-robed disciple and was ranked 9th. This was also the first time he had challenged a golden-robed disciple in this true God disciple ranking battle. If he won, he would be able to occupy the 9th position. Junior Sister Fengyan, are you challenging me again? Accompanied by a vigorous laughter, a tall and burly golden-robed disciple with red skin and a bald head flew out. With a stretch of his hand, a black sledgehammer appeared. Be careful. The silver-eyed woman's eyes were filled with a towering battle intent. As soon as he finished speaking, the silver-eyed woman transformed into a giant red-winged bird. This bird had a pair of silver eyes, and its wings were naturally surrounded by towering flames. Boom! The surging flames immediately engulfed the surroundings and enveloped Senior Brother Chi, who was far away. Senior Brother Chi grinned and suddenly swung the sledgehammer in his hand. His arm expanded, and the sledgehammer became as huge as a mountain pressing down. It seemed like a simple move, but it was extremely mysterious. At this moment, the surrounding space and all the surrounding power seemed to have gathered on the sledgehammer. Senior Brother Chi, who was ranked 9th, used the Universe Absolute Skill World Guard. This was an absolute skill that leaned towards defense, and it was one of the 3 great Universe Absolute skills created by Forefather Tian Yu. However, Senior Brother Chi used it on the sledgehammer and used it to attack. Senior Brother Chi even fused the World Guard into his body cultivation technique, cultivating a strong body. Dongbo Shuang estimated that his strength was at least at the 6th or 7th level of the Walker's hidden secret. Moreover, Senior Brother Chi's body specialized in defense. Junior Sister Fengyan, who was ranked 15th previously, was originally an extremely talented void creature. After becoming a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple, she comprehended an absolute skill that complemented her talent. She was extremely strong. However, she lacked luck and was unable to enter the top 10. This battle lasted for a total of 6 hours. Junior sister Feng Yin relied on her superior speed and body techniques to kill. However, in the end, senior brother Qi still won. Battle after battle continued. Dongbua Shueying sat cross-legged on a stone pillar as he watched the battles. He was rather excited. This was because every disciple had dominator-level laws and profound mysteries, yet they were able to explode with extremely powerful strength. Their usage of many laws and profound mysteries made Dongbua Shueying's eyes light up. He saw some that specialized in the Massacre Dao, Ripple Dao, Mirage Dao. Although Dongbua Shueying was confident of winning, everyone had their own strengths. He absorbed the strengths of others and fused them into his own body. In the blink of an eye, this grand event went on for half a year. However, Dongbua Shueying had yet to fight a single battle. Firstly, it was because there were too many true God disciples. There were more than 700 of them. Secondly, those who were ranked at the top would directly challenge those who were ranked in the top 10. This was because only those who defeated the top 10 could replace them and become the new Golden Robe disciple. As for Dongbua Shueying, although he was also a Golden Robe disciple, he was ranked 11th. When the ranking battle ended, he would only be a Purple Robe disciple. Under normal circumstances, there would only be 10 Golden Robe disciples. Of course, there was a third reason for not fighting a single battle. Dongbua Shueying was watching the battles excitedly. It was an eye-opener. Although he had read through many books, watching a group of truly incredible laws and profound mysteries fight was still a great benefit to him. His comprehension of the Massacre Dao, Ripple Dao, and Mirage Dao deepened. Even the second sword of the 1-3 Armageddon swords was resolved. Cultivation was all about accumulation. Once there was enough accumulation, one would break through. Now that Dongbua Shueying was watching the battles, it was a form of accumulation. After all, these rulers were too incredible. Even if his master Bloodblade was in the ruler realm, he wouldn't be able to enter the top 100. One could imagine how monstrous the true God disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple were. Senior brother Dongbua Shueying, please. Suddenly a voice rang out. Dongbua Shueying, who was watching another battle in the distance, couldn't help but be stunned. Only then did he notice a black-skinned youth looking at him from mid-air. Challenge. There was actually someone who wanted to challenge him. Dongbua Shueying was quite happy. However, even if he won, he would only be ranked 11th. This junior brother, please. Dongbua Shueying flew out. Dongbua Shueying. The Golden Robe disciple Dongbua Shueying, who came from the cosmos? He came from the same cosmos as Sword Master and Ancestor Demon. This battle instantly attracted the attention of a large number of disciples. Because the other 10 Golden Robe disciples weren't fighting yet, those who could challenge them were all ranked in the top 30. Hence, battles between the Golden Robe disciples would only happen occasionally. This brought Dongbua Shueying. Ancestor Demon also looked down. The white-haired Sword Master also looked over. To the two of them, they were quite interested in the battle between juniors from their hometown. The black-skinned youth stood in mid-air and said, "Bao Xiao greets senior brother Dongbua Shueying. Senior brother mentioned before that we can bet during the true God disciple ranking battle, right?" Dongbua Shueying was stunned, and his expression changed slightly. Bet. I was wondering why he would invite me to a battle. If I won, I wouldn't be able to enter the top 10. So it was because of the stakes. Yes. Dongbua Shueying nodded. The stakes are senior brother's void god weapon? The black-skinned youth continued. At this moment, the other disciples were getting excited. Bet. Back then, when the Golden Robe disciple from this cosmos arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple, there were many who wanted to bet. However, over 30 million years had passed, and this Golden Robe disciple had read countless books in the Wanxiang Palace. Now his strength was unpredictable, and the stakes were too high. Hence, no one dared to bet. Bao Xiao was ranked 16th previously, but he was once a Golden Robe disciple. An ex-Golden Robe disciple actually wants to bet with this Dongbua Shueying. This is too much of a bully. So sinister. This Dongbua Shuang shouldn't be so stupid to agree to the bet, right? The disciples were discussing secretly. Although Bao Xiao was ranked 16th previously, it didn't mean that he was weaker than 15th. Because if he didn't enter the top 10, his ranking wouldn't be that important. After all, Bao Xiao was once a golden-robed disciple. His strength was naturally exceptional. You want to bet with my void god weapon? Dongbua Shuang looked at him. Then can you take out 25 origin world rocks or treasures of equivalent value? Of course I can. The black-skinned youth looked at Dongbua Shuang. Senior brother, are you willing to bet? Now that all the disciples are here, even the 2 palace lords and the various hall masters are here, I can't go back on my words. Then let's bet it is. Dongbua Shuang nodded. The black-skinned youth was stunned, and he was overjoyed. After all, he was once a golden-robed disciple. Hence his desire to enter the top 10 wasn't that strong. This was because he had obtained the supplementary spiritual fruit long ago, and he had obtained a universe-ranked absolute art before. Instead, he was extremely tempted to bet with Dongbua Shuang. That was a high-grade void god weapon. If he were to take out 25 origin world rocks, he would have to spend all his savings. This time, he was going to make a huge profit. The other golden-robed disciples, either because they wanted to save face, or because they thought that Dongbua Shuang wouldn't be stupid enough to accept the challenge, didn't open their mouths to challenge him. But he did. Dongbua Shuang actually agreed. This made some of the golden-robed disciples frustrated. This Dongbua Shuang was really so arrogant? Why didn't I invite him earlier? Not going back on your words? The black-skinned youth asked again. Of course not. Dongbua Shuang replied. At this moment, most of the people in the meeting looked at Dongbua Shuang and Bao Xiao. Even the demon ancestor and the sword master were just watching with interest. They didn't try to stop them at all. At Dongbua Ying's level of cultivation, he wasn't a child anymore. He had to bear the consequences of every decision he made. Chapter 821. Just as Dongbua Shuang finished speaking, the black-skinned young man's eyes lit up and he shouted, Senior brother Dongbua Shuang is really straightforward. Take this. As soon as he finished speaking, green electric snakes suddenly shot out from the surface of his body. These thunderbolts were like living snakes, rampaging through the void with terrifying destructive power, as they directly surrounded Yi Futian. In an instant, hundreds of lightning snakes surrounded and attacked. Dongbua Shuang stood at his original position, holding a deep purple spear in his right hand. Formless ripples spread out from his surroundings, with him as the center, forming a huge spherical domain. Formless ripples were constantly spreading and twisting within it. The sky was like a world in a pond, constantly rippling and twisting. Those attacking lightning serpents seemed to have fallen into a net. They were heavily entangled and restricted, causing their power to rapidly decrease. Before these lightning serpents could even reach Shui Ying's side, they were annihilated. Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement. This Dongbua Shuang has such a powerful domain technique. To be able to execute Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement to such an extent, it actually broke through the lightning snakes. The spectating disciples exclaimed in admiration. They were all too familiar with some of the absolute arts of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement was a Chaos-class absolute art, and even the purple-robed disciples had the right to choose it. Including the cultivators in history, there were too many of them. Even among the true god rulers of this era, there were quite a few who cultivated Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement. They could tell that Dongbua Shuang's attainments in Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement were impressive. Thundersnake Nine Swords might be an ultimate universe absolute art, but it is ultimately an offensive sword technique. The lightning snakes that attack a large area of effect are comparatively weaker. While Shadowless Heaven's Encirclement is a Chaos-class absolute art, it is purely a domain-class absolute art. In terms of domain, it is sufficient to defend against those lightning snakes. Bao Xiao has yet to reveal his true strength. If he unleashes his full strength, I'm afraid that Dongbua Shuang will still lose. And, regardless of experience or accumulation, Dongbua Shuang is at a disadvantage. It's still a gamble battle. It's a high-grade void divine weapon. These disciples were secretly discussing. Although Dongbo Shuang seemed to have the upper hand in the battle, everyone still favored Bao Xiao. This was because Bao Xiao was not proficient in domain-type techniques. Bao Xiao could not help but laugh when he saw that the lightning serpent he had released was completely worn out. Senior brother Dongbo Ying's strength is indeed impressive. Just as he finished speaking, his body abruptly turned into a dazzling violet lightning. This violet lightning arced through the void and came attacking with a frightening speed. This speed caused Ying's expression to change. So fast. In this half a year, he had also seen many battles, and there were also many golden-robed disciples battles. But this Bao Xiao's speed was still the fastest he had ever seen. Even with his strength as a void walker, his flying speed would still be a notch lower. Boom! Dongbo Ying retreated abruptly. He was not in a hurry to engage in battle. After all, the stakes involved were huge. He wanted to take a closer look at his opponent. In the sacred world, they were unable to teleport, and in terms of speed, although Dongbo Ying was not as fast as his opponent, he could still be ranked in the top 10 among all the true God disciples. Moreover, the ripples in the surroundings suddenly changed, and within the huge spherical ripple domain, blood-colored threads started to appear. Countless blood-colored threads crisscrossed every corner of the spherical domain. During the time he spent in the Great Void Heaven Temple, Dongbo Ying had already pushed his massacre domain to a new level. This Dongbo Ying is so fast. I am only able to reach this speed because I cultivated the 9 Thunder Snake swords, the absolute art created by the Sword Master. How can he be so fast as well? He is only slightly slower than me. Bao Xiao was still shocked by Dongbo Ying's speed, but his expression soon changed. That was because countless blood-colored threads had appeared in the surrounding domain. These blood-colored threads were like the veins of the ripple domain, causing the restraining power of the entire ripple domain to rapidly increase. Moreover, these blood-colored threads were like sharp blades that possessed shocking destructive power. Under the massacre domain, Bao Xiao felt as though he was flying in an inescapable net, and his speed also became slower. Damn it, trying to stop me? Get lost for me. Bao Xiao was originally maintaining his smile, but at this moment he felt danger. His expression could not help but turn malevolent, and his eyes were filled with a sharp killing intent. I must win this battle. Boom! The black divine sword in Bao Xiao's hand suddenly brightened. Sila, Bao Xiao's entire body carried the divine sword, and with a terrifying sharpness, he forcefully tore apart the massacre domain and charged towards Dongbo Ying. Come! Dongbo Ying also charged forward. Regardless of whether it was to save time to cultivate in the Palace of Time, or to obtain precious cultivation resources, he needed Origin World stones and other treasures. Therefore, he was determined to win this battle. The dark purple spear shaft revolved as it shot out, and the spearhead headed towards Bao Xiao. Apocalyptic First Sword. Bao Xiao's expression changed. He actually managed to cultivate the apocalyptic first sword. This is going to be troublesome. Seated at the highest point, Sword Master and Forefather Tian, you were both observing the battle below. Ha ha ha. Forefather Tian, you laughed. Sword Master, you and that fellow are cultivating my apocalyptic 13 swords, while his opponent is your Thunder Snake 9 swords. Forefather, the white-haired Sword Master watched the battle below and casually said, the 3 absolute arts you left behind in the primal cosmos were all created by you. The absolute arts I created, none of them are in my hometown cosmos. Even if this Dongbo Ying wants to learn them, he wouldn't be able to choose them in his hometown cosmos. Haha, no matter what, he is learning my absolute arts. Forefather Tian Yu was rather proud. Swordmaster had created a total of 4 universe-level absolute arts, out of which 3 were sword techniques. Alright, you have been in seclusion. Are you confident now? Forefather Tian Yu suddenly looked at Swordmaster with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Only 50% confidence. Swordmaster's expression was slightly solemn. This matter is of great importance. If we aren't careful, there might be a huge battle. I'm afraid that the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world might be destroyed. Therefore, I'm only 100% confident. At that time, we still have to prepare. Forefather Tian Yu nodded his head slowly, I have waited for this day for too long. However, there is no rush. If you aren't 100% confident, then continue waiting. I don't have any hope. After cultivating for so many years, I haven't improved at all. You are different. You have much more hope than me. Sword Master's eyes were filled with desire as he looked down and laughed. Let's not talk about that matter. Let's watch the battle first. Amen, let's watch. Forefather Tian Yu lowered his head and watched. Dang dang dang. The weapons of both parties clashed at lightning speed. The black-skinned junior apprentice brother, Bao Xiao, had completely transformed into lightning. He attacked with his sword at an extremely fast speed. As for Dongbo Shuaying, he was able to use his slaughter domain together with his apocalyptic first sword. Ho! Junior apprentice brother Bao Xiao had completely gone mad. He roared in anger, and a golden eye split open on his forehead. The golden eye was filled with terrifying lightning. The divine sword in his hand guided the golden lightning, causing its might to rise rapidly. This was his strongest technique as a golden-robed disciple. Ancient cultivation? Dongbo Shuaying was long prepared. Elite disciples of the laws and profound mysteries lineage would usually cultivate in other systems to make up for some of their flaws. Usually, they would complement each other, allowing them to unleash even greater combat power. This junior apprentice brother Bao Xiao was once a golden-robed disciple, because he was an expert in controlling lightning in the ancient cultivation system. Some ancient cultivators were extremely strong, some were extremely weak, and some had mysterious techniques. This was the cultivation system of the primitive ancient sacred world. When one became a deity, the laws and profound mysteries lineage would require one to open up a deity sea within one's body before condensing a true deity heart. As for the ancient cultivation system, one would need to nurture a life core and fuse one's soul within. This life core would usually be a certain organ in the body. For example, eyes. For example, ears. For example, heart. For example, skin. For example, brain. Different life cores would cause their potential to be different. At the deity realm, they would be able to display all sorts of strange techniques. And at the true God ruler level, for example, the golden lightning eye of junior apprentice brother Bao Xiao, even if he used it in the most foolish way, he would still be at the peak of rulers. Weaker rulers would be instantly killed. Furthermore, junior apprentice brother Bao Xiao had fused his power into the 9 swords of Thunder Snake. This was even more terrifying. Facing the berserk Bao Xiao, Dongbo Shuaying immediately channeled the surging power within his body into his spear. The power of the Void Walker level 20 burst forth. Chapter 822. Hong. The weapons collided and Bao Xiao was sent flying backwards. His body trembled, and he uncontrollably spat out a mouthful of blood, which splattered in midair. Immediately after, it was easily annihilated by the countless blood-colored threads. What? How is this possible? He actually gained the upper hand. Many of the spectators who were relatively calm previously were greatly startled. Bao Xiao had fused his ancient cultivation technique with the 9 Thunder Snake swords, causing his strength to rise significantly. This was Bao Xiao's true power. They felt that it was sufficient to suppress Dongbo Shuaying. Yet the outcome of the clash was that Bao Xiao was completely suppressed. Junior disciple brother Bao Xiao, receive a few moves from me. Dongbo Shuaying guffawed. He wielded his spear and charged over. How could this be? No, this shouldn't be the case. Bao Xiao hurriedly displayed his sword techniques in a panic to parry against the incoming attacks. But every single spear of Dongbo Shuaying, other than being profound and unfathomable, contained a horrifying power. It was like a surging wave crashing over, and he could not defend against it at all. Every time he received a move, he would be forced back. Dongbo Shuaying became even more berserk. He used his slaughter domain to restrain the enemy, and his spear chased after him. It was the same apocalyptic first sword. If one's body was weak, there would be a world of difference between the full power of a Voidwalker body and that of a Void God. The 20th level of Walker's hidden secret allowed Dongbo Shuaying's body to reach the threshold of the Void God realm. Previously, he had been restraining his strength. Otherwise, how could the other party fight until now when he used the 9 Thunder Snake swords and the 13 apocalyptic swords? The threshold void god body coupled with the apocalyptic first sword was much more terrifying than the other party's golden-eyed thunder snake 9 thunder snake swords. Hong hong hong. Dongbo Shueing did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. He chased after Bao Xiao with his attacks. Poop! Finally, a spear parried the divine sword in Bao Xiao's hand. The divine sword stabbed into his body. The surface of the violet robe was extremely tough, yet the destructive power contained in the spear still managed to penetrate through, causing Bao Xiao's body to shatter into pieces. Suddenly, an invisible force instantly enveloped Bao Xiao. Although parts of Bao Xiao's body started to disintegrate, his head was completely protected. Feeling the eruption of this power, Shueing revealed a grin and immediately took a step back. Victory! The hidden world field itself was an extremely mysterious formation. The power of the hidden world field permeated every corner of the battlefield. Once a disciple was in a life-threatening situation, the power of the hidden world field could instantly protect them. After all, it was just a battle between true god rulers. To the hidden world field that Forefather Tianyu personally set up, it was too easy to protect the true god disciples. Over the long years, the true deity disciples had fought in the hidden world field, but none of them had truly died. Bao Xiao's body was recovering. It was just that his face was somewhat pale, and his eyes were somewhat dazed. Lost. He lost. Junior brother Bao Xiao, remember the bet? Dongbo Shueing smiled. Bao Xiao looked at the spear-wielding youth in front of him. He had lost miserably. A golden-robed disciple from the cosmos had very little experience fighting against monstrous rulers. Bao Xiao had thought that this was an opportunity to take advantage of him. In a bet battle, the loser had to admit it. Today, even Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master and many other hall masters were present. Bao Xiao did not dare to act shamelessly. Previously, he was still thinking that as long as he won, Dongbo Shueing would definitely not act shamelessly. Who would have thought that he would have to face such a predicament? All right. Bao Xiao flipped his hand, and a wristband appeared. His facial muscles twitched a little, but he still tossed it over. Dongbo Shueing caught the wristband and instantly refined it. Furthermore, he received a message from his communication token. His contribution points had increased by 30,000 points. Amen. Dongbo Shueing checked the items within the wristband. The most dazzling and eye-catching items were the stones. The stones were flowing with strange colors, and were extremely beautiful. It would cause one's heart to involuntarily move. Even one's soul would be attracted and tremble. Just like when a person was extremely hungry and wanted to eat, his soul would also feel hungry, wanting to eat these origin world rocks. After Dongbo Shueing checked through the origin world rocks and other items, he no longer checked through his communication token. Only then did the feeling of hunger in his soul disappear. Dongbo Shueing let out a sigh of relief inwardly. The origin world rocks are indeed too attractive. According to hearsay, even primal chaos existences and cosmos gods attach great importance to the origin world rocks. It would be too wasteful for me, a true god ruler, to directly absorb the origin world rocks. The origin world rocks were mysterious. They were useful to any life form, including cosmos gods. And some rare treasures would have a weaker effect on the stronger the cultivator. For instance, the supplementary spiritual fruit had a mystical effect on rulers. But to cosmos gods, it was useless even if they ate it. Hence, the origin world rocks were more suitable for experts to use. To the weak, using it to exchange for treasures was more worthwhile. There are only 12 origin world rocks. Dongbo Shueing transmitted to Bao Xiao. Bao Xiao's expression was slightly awkward. He transmitted back, 12 origin world rocks. Other items and contribution points can barely be counted as 13 origin world rocks. Dongbo Shueing glanced at him. 3 origin world rocks could be exchanged for 30,000 contribution points. But 30,000 contribution points was something nobody was willing to use origin world rocks to exchange for. I have accumulated these 12 origin world rocks for many years. Bao Xiao transmitted back. All right. Dongbo Shueing chuckled. If junior disciple brother Bao Xiao still wants to have a wagered battle, I'll be willing to accompany you anytime. Right. he would be willing to accompany him anytime. Because after the true God-disciple battle ended, he would break through to the void god realm. This battle had indeed made many disciples dumbfounded. Bao Xiao, who was once a golden-robed disciple, actually lost to Dongbue Shuiying in a wagered battle. This Dongbue Shuiying is quite skilled. His body seems to be exceptionally strong. Some of the hall masters who were watching the battle were startled. Ancestor Devil's cold face finally revealed a grin. Within the Great Void Heaven Temple, whenever Dongbue Shuiying was mentioned, he would always say that he came from the same cosmos as Ancestor Devil and Sword Master. Hence, Dongbue Shuiying could be more dazzling, giving Ancestor Devil some face. Ancestor Devil and Sword Master were different. The Sword Master was relatively transcendent, and Ancestor Devil still cared more about his face. He actually won. Forefather Tianyu looked downwards with shock. His body is actually so strong. His body should be ranked second amongst the true God disciples. His body leans towards the void, and I wonder what kind of fortuitous encounter he had. There were too many possibilities with a strong body. There were many types of ancient cultivation, and the strongest warrior system had many terrifying inheritances. Even the laws and profound mysteries system had many absolute arts that trained the body. For instance, there was a true God disciple in the Great Void Heaven Temple, who was extremely talented in the strongest warrior system. His body was even stronger than Dongbue Shuiying, who was a void walker at the 20th level. This was also the reason why Dongbue Shuiying did not use the termination energy. There were many reasons why his body was strong, but the moment he used the termination energy, primal chaos existences, and the two palace masters would immediately recognize it. It was fine for Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master to know that he was a void walker. But if he were to reveal it in such a gathering of experts, there might be trouble, because his teacher Gu Qi seemed to have offended a terrifying enemy. Even though the Great Void Heaven Temple could protect him, it was better to avoid trouble. He did not need to use the termination energy to enter the top 10. Senior disciple Brother Qi Yun, Dongbue Shuiying did not fly back to the stone pillar. Instead, he stood in midair and looked at the golden-robed disciple who was ranked 7th. Please. That slightly thin golden-pupiled male was slightly startled. A smile appeared on the edge of his mouth before he directly flew out. And at this moment, the surrounding turned silent. Another challenge? This Dongbue Shuiying had not acted in the past half a year. Now that he had defeated Bao Xiao, he actually challenged the 7th-ranked Qi Yun. Junior disciple Brother Dongbue Shuiying has been showing off his abilities. After a wager battle, you are now challenging me again. The golden-pupiled male chuckled. Do you want to place a bet for this battle? 25 origin world rocks or treasures of equivalent value. Dongbue Shuiying chuckled. Just like the previous time, if senior disciple Brother Qi Yun is willing to wager, I will naturally be happy. The golden-pupiled male was slightly startled. An uproar broke out in the surroundings. Haha, forget about me. I can't take out so many treasures in a short period of time. The golden-pupiled male laughed heartily as he rejected. However, his heart was slightly tense. If he wasn't confident, he wouldn't dare to gamble so many treasures. Even as a golden-robed disciple, it wasn't easy for him to accumulate so many treasures. Senior disciple Brother Qi Yun, be careful. The moment Dongbue Shuiying's words landed, a formless ripple appeared in the surroundings. At the same time, countless blood-colored threads started to spread out. A pair of golden wings suddenly spread out from the golden-pupiled male's back. His body turned illusory as 3 clones appeared. Dongbue Shuiying grinned as 3 clones appeared around him. Including his original body, there were a total of 4 clones. Not good. The golden-pupiled male Qi Yun's heart turned cold. Dongbue Shuiying's domain was used to suppress and restrain Qi Yun's clones. Without the advantage of his clones, Qi Yun's strength was slightly weaker than Bao Xiao. In this battle, Dongbue Shuiying was still the victor. He replaced Bao Xiao and became the 7th-ranked golden-robed disciple, officially entering the top 10. I've lost. Qi Yun didn't feel that bad. After all, he was prepared after seeing how powerful his opponent's clones were. In fact, he was rejoicing. Luckily I didn't wager earlier. A loss was a loss. It was just a drop from the 7th rank to the 8th rank. As for the true God disciples, and the higher-ups of the Great Void Heaven Temple, they were all shocked. A newly emerged golden-robed disciple from the cosmos managed to enter the top 10, just like that? This was a sacred ground, the Great Void Heaven Temple. And looking at the spiritual aura, Dongbo Shui-ing was the youngest among the top 10 golden-robed disciples. Chapter 823. Ancestor Devil. This Dongbo Shui-ing should come from the same cosmos as you, right? This brat is quite formidable. He has not been in the Great Void Heaven Temple for long, yet he could enter the top 10 of the true God disciples in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Sword Master has stepped into the final realm. Ancestor Devil, you have also reached the primal chaos realm a long time ago. I wonder how far this brat from the same cosmos can reach. Some of the hall masters were praising him too. Even though the eyes of Ancestor Devil were filled with praise and satisfaction, he still said, he is just a true God ruler. It is still too early for him to become an inner hall elder. Inner hall elder? The other hall masters chuckled and did not say anything else. What a joke! How difficult was it to become an inner hall elder? According to the hierarchy within the Great Void Heaven Temple, Palace Master, Hall Master, and then Inner Hall Elder, and then Outer Hall Elder. Even golden-robed disciples who broke through to the Void God realm were mostly Outer Hall Elders. It was too difficult to become an Inner Hall Elder. Inner Hall Elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. That was sufficient to intimidate an entire region. Even primal chaos giants had to treat it seriously. Seated at the highest location, Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master might be praising him, but they were calm in their hearts. After all, reaching their level, there were too few things that could cause a ripple in them. The battles continued within the hidden world field. After Dongbo Shui-ing obtained the 7th position, he returned back to the stone pillar and sat cross-legged. He was watching the battles in a low-profile manner. Different from other true God disciples, Dongbo Shui-ing was watching every battle seriously. He was even analyzing the various profound mysteries used by the other party. Even though some of his junior disciple brothers and sisters were weaker than him, their usage of the laws and profound mysteries still made his eyes brighten. The more he understood, the more comprehension he would have towards the second sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords. To the other disciples, the ranking battle determined their status. To Dongbo Shui-ing, it was a place where he could gain experience. After all, he had seen too few battles using the laws and profound mysteries. If it were a battle between primal chaos giants, he would not be able to understand it. Instead, this ranking battle was most suitable for him to watch. Years passed by. More than 700 disciples challenged one after another. It was either a battle of life and death, or one side took the initiative to admit defeat. If the outcome of the battle couldn't be determined, the hidden world field formation spirit would intervene to determine the victor. For example, one side was good at escaping and kept running, while the other side kept chasing. The formation spirit would determine that the side that had been fleeing had lost the battle. One side had strong life-saving abilities and was at a complete disadvantage. However, they could only rely on their life-saving abilities to resist, unable to counterattack. In the end, he would be judged to have lost the battle. The battle was fierce. However, Dongbo Shui-ing did not challenge anyone at all. Instead, he watched the battles attentively. There were a few times when other disciples took the initiative to challenge him, but in the end, Dongbo Shui-ing won all of them. His strength was acknowledged by everyone. This ranking tournament has been going on for 8 years. It's time for a challenge. Dongbo Shui-ing stood up. I have 3 chances to be defeated. Of course, I have to treasure these chances. Ranking battles. First, it was to enter the top 10 and obtain the treasures. This goal had been achieved for the time being. It was relatively safe to be ranked 7th. After all, whoever was defeated in front of him would only be pushed back by 1 position. Secondly, it was to gain experience and allow himself to grow stronger. If he wanted to help his wife Jing Qiu and Yu, he had to grow stronger. The stronger he was, the better it would be. Only when he was strong would he be able to obtain some precious supplementary treasures. Watching countless battles was helpful, and in actual combat, it was even more helpful. South Dongbo Shuang abruptly flew out. It's Dongbo Shuang. He came out again. The minds of the disciples jolted. Battles at the golden robe disciple level were more attractive to them. Junior disciple brother Flood Dragon, please. Dongbo Shuang held onto his spear as he looked at a distant golden robe disciple. He was none other than the 8th golden robe disciple. You want to challenge me? Junior disciple brother Flood Dragon was an expert with a scaled head. He was originally a mutated beast. Although he was in human form, he still felt that his real head was the most beautiful. Although he always wore a scaled head, his voice was loud and powerful. Ha ha ha, senior disciple Dongbo Shuang. You are ranked 7th, yet you want to challenge me the 8th. If you win, you will still be ranked 7th. But if you lose, you will drop to 8th. You won't gain anything from this battle. Could it be that you want to gamble? I will not gamble with you. No, it's not a gamble. It's just that junior disciple brother Flood Dragon also cultivates the 13 Armageddon swords. So my hands are itching. Dongbo Shuang said. Good. Junior disciple brother Flood Dragon laughed. He liked this kind of battle. If he lost, it would not affect his ranking. This Dongbo Shuang challenged him purely for the sake of competing in the 13 Armageddon swords. South Flood Dragon instantly streaked across the sky. The curved blade in his hand drew a demonic crescent moon. The crescent moon was purple in color, misty and beautiful. However, it also contained a terrifying ruthlessness. Flood Dragon was the same as Dongbo Shuang. Although he cultivated the 13 Armageddon swords, he converted it into a saber art that he specialized in. He mainly learned the usage of the massacre Dao. Boom boom boom, the surrounding void trembled and exploded again. Dongbo Shuang and Flood Dragon exchanged blows again and again. Both of them were getting excited. In the end, Flood Dragon even transformed into his real body. And Dongbo Shuang also exploded with the power of the Voidwalker. In the end, Flood Dragon, who was heavily injured, shouted happily, Ha ha ha, no more fighting. I admit defeat. Dongbo Shuang turned to look at the golden robe disciple who was ranked 6th. Senior disciple Qian Ke, please. He still wants to fight. Many of the spectating disciples were shocked. Senior disciple Qian Ke was wearing a graceful and gorgeous bright yellow robe. Her golden hair draped over her shoulders. Her eyes were looking at Dongbo Shuang from afar. She still had a cold expression on her face, but a guqin had appeared in her hands. Relying on the slaughter domain to weaken his opponent's domain pressure, and the mirage Dao to increase his survivability, Dongbo Shuang managed to defeat senior disciple Qian Ke, who was ranked 6th. After that, he challenged the golden robe disciple who was ranked 5th. Using both the slaughter domain and the incarnation technique, he barely managed to win. Next, he challenged the disciple who was ranked 4th. Senior disciple Yong, please. Dongbo Shuang said in a clear voice. His voice resounded throughout the entire hidden world field. At this moment, all the other battles in the hidden world field had temporarily stopped. All the true God disciples were staring at Dongbo Shuang. Even the outer hall elders, inner hall elders, hall masters, and even forefather Tianyuan and sword master were no longer chatting. Instead, they were watching the battles with interest, because Dongbo Shuang was actually challenging the golden robe disciples one by one. He actually started to challenge the 4th-ranked senior disciple Yong. Senior disciple Yong's strength is extraordinary. It won't be easy to defeat him. Although the gap between the golden robe disciples was small, the 4th-ranked still had a clear advantage over the 8th-ranked and 9th-ranked disciples. The battle continued. Yong returned to his original form. He was an extremely rare void creature that looked like a chrysalis. His head was relatively small compared to his body, but he had countless claws on his body. He was flying at high speed in the sky as he chased after Dongbo Shuang. Although he was surrounded by the slaughter domain, when he flew, the countless claws on his body were constantly tearing at the slaughter domain, and his speed didn't seem to slow down at all. He suddenly lowered his head and slammed into the void. From the void, a spear tip appeared and clashed with his head. This clash contained the profound mysteries of the universe-level absolute art world guard. Dongbo Shuang appeared from the void. spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. Senior Zhikeyong is truly powerful. Receive another spear of mine. Dongbo Shuang felt that the battle was enough. He could already feel the innate talent of this rare void creature, combined with the universe-level absolute art's might. The spear in his hands moved. The spear spun and rumbled out. The spear's body seemed like a never-ending whirlpool, causing the surrounding slaughter domain to ripple endlessly. The entire slaughter domain's ripples seemed to be attracted by the spear's body, all of them swirling towards the spear. The terrifying might continued to accumulate, wrapping around the spear. Dongbo Shuang felt that the spear in his hands was getting heavier and heavier, and its might was getting more and more terrifying. During his first closed-door training in the Palace of Time, he had already successfully combined the apocalyptic first sword with the ripple path. However, in the following years, as he comprehended the apocalyptic second sword, as his level increased, he had perfected the combination of the apocalyptic first sword and the ripple path. Until now, Dongbo Shuang still felt that it wasn't perfect enough. After all, his achievements in the ripple path were too far away from the apocalyptic first sword. He could only perfect it again and again. The eyes of Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master, and the group of Hall Masters suddenly lit up, as they carefully watched the spear that Dongbo Shuang executed. Chapter 824. The apocalyptic first sword didn't have any flamboyance. It seemed to be a very simple and plain move, but the combination of the apocalyptic first sword and the ripple path was extremely powerful. The entire slaughter domain formed a huge whirlpool, and the core of the whirlpool was this spear. Dongbo Shuang had the upper hand in terms of speed, and directly stabbed towards senior brother Zhichuyong. Although senior brother Zhichuyong felt a huge threat, he was still full of confidence in himself. He still lowered his head and forcefully charged forward. This charge was like a meteor crashing towards him. Boom! The tip of the spear spun, causing Zhichuyong's head to cave in. Because his body was protected by a golden robe, the tip of the spear was unable to pierce through it. However, the terrifying might continued to seep into his body, causing his head to cave in. Soon, even his neck was destroyed. However, with a twist of his enormous body, he rapidly retreated. His head once again grew back. His pair of beady eyes stared at Shuang in astonishment. He slightly nodded. I admit defeat. This spear technique of yours, I wholeheartedly accept my loss. Even though his body's life force was extremely strong, he would most likely die within 8 to 10 moves. The spectators cried out in surprise. He won. The apocalyptic first sword is actually not senior brother Dongbo Shuang's strongest killing technique. He has an even stronger spear technique. He's already fourth. There was an uproar. After all, senior brother Zhichuyong's strength was publicly acknowledged, yet he had still been defeated. This was enough to make many true God disciples look up to him. Even the eyes of the outer palace elders lit up. They had high hopes for Dongbo Shuang. However, Forefather Tianyu, the Sword Master, the Hall Masters, as well as the inner hall elders, outer hall elders, and disciples who had some understanding of the 13 apocalyptic swords, all realized something. The spear art that Dongbo Shuang executed was actually a spear art that used the apocalyptic first sword as its foundation, and fused with other laws of profound mysteries. Only those with a high enough realm, or those who had studied the 13 apocalyptic swords would be able to see this. Even the Hall Masters, and those with higher cultivation could see even more. You can actually modify the first apocalyptic sword, fusing the apocalyptic first sword with the wave path. A Hall Master at the side was shocked. The apocalyptic first sword is perfect. Many true God ruler level disciples are already quite good if they can learn it. It's impossible to modify it. This Dongbo Shuang was actually able to modify the Armageddon first sword and integrate the wave Dao into it. This is too incredible. The apocalyptic first sword has indeed been modified. These Hall Masters had very sharp eyes. They could tell that Dongbo Shuang's subsequent spear art was not only a fusion of the first apocalyptic sword with other Daos, but it was also a slight modification of the first apocalyptic sword. It allowed it to fuse with the wave path more perfectly. If it was just a complete restoration, It would not have shocked the hall masters, even though it was powerful. And to be able to modify it. This meant that Dongbo Shuiying had already seen through the intentions behind the creation of the apocalyptic first sword by forefather Tianyu. In fact, he even dared to modify it, and even increase its power. He dared to modify the apocalyptic first sword and even succeeded. The white-haired sword master, who was sitting at the highest spot, said, "He's still so young. If he spends a bit more time, he might be able to learn the apocalyptic second sword at the Dominator rank." In the entire history of the Great Void Heaven Temple, to be able to learn the apocalyptic second sword at the Dominator rank, there was only one. One could see how difficult it was. Forefather Tianyu looked down and laughed as he nodded. "Haha. As expected of someone from the same universe as you and the ancestor demon. Not bad. Among the current batch of true God disciples, only Dongbo Shuiying and the number 1 Rain Sword Master can modify a universe-level absolute art. However, Rain Sword Master has cultivated for a much longer period of time. His comprehension is still much weaker than Dongbo Shuiying's. In terms of potential, among this batch of true God disciples, Dongbo Shuiying is number 1. The Sword Master agreed. Potential. Firstly, one's strength. Secondly, one's age. Thirdly, one's past experiences. Dongbo Shuiying's current attainments in the laws and profound mysteries were so deep that only the number 1 Rain Sword Master could match up to him. And forefather Tianyu had cultivated for a much shorter period of time. In the past, he had been in the universe. To be able to see the modification of the apocalyptic first sword, there were only 10 of the strongest people in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple. Some of the disciples and elders who had trained in the 13 apocalyptic swords could only see that this move was based on the apocalyptic first sword. As for the minute modifications, in an instant battle, they did not have the vision to analyze the 9th volume of the Wind Ripple Path and separate the Ripple Path to determine the minute modifications to the apocalyptic first sword. This eyesight required too much of one's cultivation realm. This was because the 9 hall masters, forefather Tianyu and sword master, were discussing amongst themselves. The praising expressions of the hall masters could be seen with a single glance. This caused one of the golden robed disciples to feel unhappy. Didn't he just defeat that idiot Zhichuyong? And the hall masters are praising him so much? The green-browed skinny man, Old Demon Needle, stared coldly at Dongbo Shuiying with a pair of green eyes. "Then I shall trample him beneath my feet. Let's see if the hall masters will still praise me." After all, he did not train in the 13 apocalyptic swords, and was unable to see through the profoundness of Dongbo Shuiying's spear arts. Furthermore, he did not know that the reason why the hall masters were praising him was because Dongbo Shuiying had modified a cosmos-level absolute art. Old Demon Needle. He was originally known as Forefather Golden Needle, but was forced to change his name to Old Demon Needle. Clearly, he was extremely arrogant and crazy. Fortunately, the Great Void Heaven Temple was tolerant. As long as they did not violate the laws of the Heaven Temple, they could tolerate these cruel and violent cultivators. South Old Demon Needle flew out. "Dongbo Shuiying, you are truly insolent, challenging so many golden-robed disciples. I shall let you know that your meager strength is far from enough." Old Demon Needle flew into the air and said in a clear voice. His majestic voice reverberated in all directions. In midair, the golden-robed Dongbo Shuiying looked at Old Demon Needle in astonishment. Insolent. He had challenged the golden-robed disciples, and even though he had won, he did not get carried away. Furthermore, his challenge was in accordance with the rules. How was he insolent? Dongbo Shuiying had only just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even though he had obtained some information and knew of Old Demon Needle's strength, he did not understand his temperament. "Senior brother Golden Needle wants to challenge me? I couldn't ask for more." Dongbo Shuiying laughed. "Please. Then I shall give you some pointers." Old Demon Needle was still as arrogant as ever. However, he had his reasons to be arrogant. The first-ranked Rain Sword artist and the second-ranked Old Demon Needle, compared to the other golden-robed disciples, they had a huge advantage. Rain Sword artist had modified a cosmic-ranked absolute art to create his own killer move. As for Old Demon Needle, he was an extremely terrifying ancient cultivator. Go! Old Demon Needle instantly made his move. The black horn on his forehead suddenly lit up. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, over 100 black beams of light appeared in the sky and crazily charged towards Dongbo Shuiying. These black beams of light were too fast. Up till now, Dongbo Shuiying had encountered the fastest true body dominator weapons. Every single black beam of light appeared in front of him almost instantaneously. Dongbo Shuiying instinctively entered the mirage world. At the same time, he executed his spear arts and the slaughter domain. However, these black beams of light were too fast. Over 100 black beams of light instantly charged into the mirage world. Although their might was only slightly affected, they still retained 80 to 90% of their original might. Dang, dang, dang. Dongbo Shuiying did not have the time to defend against the attacks, even after executing his spear techniques. Because the 100 over beams of light were all extremely exquisite and fast, they immediately bombarded on his body. The golden robe on his body was incomparably tough. Being a void walker, his body had voidified. Hence, the impact he suffered was diverted into the void by Dongbo Shuiying, leaving behind a strand of power that could be used on his body. Nevertheless, it did not pose any threat to the body at the void god level. The apex ancient cultivator is indeed formidable. Dongbo Shuiying sighed. Ancient cultivators specialized in all sorts of strange things. Some were so heaven-defying that they were strong. At this moment, Old Demon Needle did not display any powerful techniques. He purely relied on his innate talent as an ancient cultivator to attack the body of Dongbo Shuiying. Junior disciple brother Dongbo Shuiying, just this bit of strength? It is better for you to train more. Old Demon Needle sneered. His eyes were filled with green light as he stared coldly at the distant void. He could sense Dongbo Shuiying hiding within the mirage world. Chapter 825. Old Demon Needle's expression suddenly changed. I actually didn't injure him at all? Before he could even unleash a stronger technique, Dongbo Shuiying's attack arrived. 3 black-robed Dongbo Shuiyings appeared around Old Demon Needle's body. Each of them wielded a spear and unleashed their strongest killer move. Each spear formed a terrifying ripple whirlpool, forming the 3 great whirlpools of the slaughter domain. The 3 spears attacked at the same time. Old Demon Needle's expression changed. With a malevolent expression he roared. Scram! The black horn on his forehead abruptly flew out, bringing with it a terrifying might that swept across the surroundings, forming circular ripples that instantly swept across the spears of the 3 clones. Because the attack of Shuiying's incarnations was too fast, Old Devil Needle had completely unleashed his strongest combat power. His true life core horn displayed the cosmos-ranked absolute art, the waning moon sword scripture. One could only hear a series of booms, and the 3 great incarnations were forced back. Although the clones were physically weak, their spear arts were formidable. It was a killer move that combined the Armageddon First Sword and the Ripple Path. Only the current number 1 Rain Sword artist and Dongbo Shuiying could compare to it. Even though the clones were weak, each of them had combat strength that could rank in the top 10. The encirclement of the 3 clones was indeed giving Old Demon Needle a lot of pressure. The distant Dongbo Shuiying's true body also erupted with power. He completely ignored the black streams of light that bombarded his body. After all, these attacks couldn't injure him at all. He forcefully charged towards Old Demon Needle. This kid's defense is extremely strong, and his spear arts are formidable as well. Old Demon Needle's pupils constricted. He didn't expect the clones to be able to threaten him. Die! Old Demon Needle went berserk. The hundreds of black streams of light rapidly returned. Furthermore, each stream of light was laced with lightning. Their power had clearly increased, and they directly attacked Dongbo Shuiying's 3 clones. Previously, these black streaks of light were able to attack Dongbo Shuiying's body. Now that they had executed another chaos-grade ultimate skill, even though they could not threaten Dongbo Shuiying's real body, they were more than enough to deal with his incarnations. This was already Old Demon Needle giving it his all. He was unable to make the black light unleash a universe-level absolute art. Over 100 beams of light, all using universe-level techniques? The burden on his soul was too great. The reason why Dongbo Shuiying could only summon 3 clones was because his soul strength could only allow the 3 clones to unleash their full power. Not good, it's even faster. The 3 incarnations were shocked. Although their spear techniques were impressive, the faster black flowing light instantly pierced through their bodies and annihilated the 3 incarnations. Incarnation? 50 golden needles should be enough to protect my body. Old Devil Needle willed. The 50 black streaks of light revolved around his body. However, the other 50 black streaks of light, along with the black horn, continued to attack Dongbo Shuiying's real body. The incoming Dongbo Shuiying's real body was incomparably valiant. The power within his body was completely unleashed, and the spear in his hand executed the 9th chapter of Storm of Tao. In an instant, a huge ripple whirlpool formed in the surroundings, clashing with the black streaks of light. Boom boom boom. Dongbo Shuiying had personally experienced the might of the black horn. The black horn executed the waning moon sword scroll created by the sword master. It was bewitching and extremely fast. Fortunately, there was only one horn. Dongbo Shuiying was barely able to block it with his spear techniques, but the ferocious force caused him to stagger backwards. The other black streaks of light were still attacking his body time and time again. Die for me. Old Demon Needle had gone crazy. Old Devil Needle's attacks were very ferocious. The earth-shattering attacks caused Dongbo Shuiying's real body to be unable to move forward, and he was completely surrounded. Although he had also used his incarnation to deal with Old Devil Needle, the 50 black streaks of light were too fast. They didn't care about the incarnation's spear techniques at all, and just focused on attacking together, easily annihilating all 3 of Dongbo Shuiying's incarnations. Old Devil Needle's strength is indeed much stronger than the other golden-robed disciples. His advantage is very clear. Dongbo Shuiying also understood that he couldn't win this battle. I can't break through his encirclement at all. The might of his natal core horn is indeed very strong, and when he executes the waning moon sword scroll, he can completely suppress me. In terms of spear techniques, his own spear techniques were more profound than the opponent's waning moon sword scroll. He was also at the 20th level of the Voidwalker realm, but he was still being suppressed. Why? It was because the core of Old Devil Needle's ancient cultivation, the horn, was too powerful. This was the terror of ancient cultivators. Even though the majority of ancient cultivators possessed all sorts of strange abilities, their strength was generally mediocre. But amongst the countless ancient cultivators, there would be some extremely terrifying existences that were more heaven-defying than any other cultivation system. Hence, the sacred master of the ancient sacred world was the strongest amongst all final realm existences. He was publicly acknowledged as the strongest. If Ancestor Mother had many enemies, then the majority of final realm existences had enmity with Sacred Master. But Sacred Master still dominated the ancient sacred world. Waning Moon Sword Scroll. This cosmos-ranked absolute art created by Sword Master is indeed formidable. Dongbo Shuiying was enjoying the battle, absorbing the experience. Time passed. Old Devil Needle was frenziedly attacking. He was completely suppressing Dongbo Shuiying, while Dongbo Shuiying was absorbing the experience from the battle. Hong, an unseen force descended. The horn and the group of black streaks of light were forced to a stop. Those black streaks of light were actually huge golden needles. Every single golden needle had strange black veins on its surface. These golden needles were not refined weapons. Instead, they were the life support weapons of Old Devil Needle's ancient cultivators. After all, as an ancient cultivator, the life core was very important. Very few would use it to battle. The battle was stopped. Old Devil Needle's eyes were glowing with green light as he looked at Dongbo Shuiying. He was still filled with madness, and Dongbo Shuiying kept his spear. Victory to Old Devil Needle. The Hidden World Field's Array Spirit's voice resounded. Admirable. Dongbo Shuiying chuckled. Brat, train more. Don't be too arrogant with just this bit of strength. Old Devil Needle sneered. Dongbo Shuiying was slightly startled. He was speechless. It was just a spar. Why was there a need for that? True God rulers were still very tender amongst the countless experts in the vast 5 sacred worlds and primal chaos void. Why would he offend others so arrogantly when sparring with fellow disciples of the same sect? Moreover, in terms of realms, Old Devil Needle's realm was probably in the top 10. It was only because of his heaven-defying ancient cultivation techniques that he managed to rank second. Some of the inner hall elders and even hall masters could see that in terms of realm, Dongbo Shuang was much higher than Old Devil Needle. Perhaps only the number 1 Rain Swordsman could compare with him. It was just that the ancient cultivation techniques were too powerful, making it impossible for Dongbo Shuang to win. What a bunch of idiots! Ancestor Demon looked down and sneered. The ancient cultivation techniques can only bully little fellows of the same level. Dongbo Shuang's potential is much higher than his. Very soon, the gap in strength will be pulled apart. Moreover, the Tao of laws and profound mysteries gets stronger the further one goes. With his bit of ancient cultivation talent, he can only be arrogant amongst the little fellows. Ancestor Demon was very clear that the ancient cultivators gathered in the distant ancient sacred world, under the command of the sacred master. The ancient cultivators were much more talented than Old Devil Needle. However, there were many experts amongst the ancient cultivators who were unwilling to submit to the sacred master. That was because the price to submit to the sacred master was simply too great. This was a price that many ancient cultivators would rather die than bear. Below, after Dongbo Shuang was defeated, he still smiled and looked at the golden-robed fatty who was ranked 3rd. Senior apprentice brother Shuechen, please. Haha. I guess that junior apprentice brother Dongbo Shuang would challenge me. But that idiot Golden Needle beat you to it. The golden-robed fatty flew out. Shuechen, Old Devil Needle, who was on his stone pillar, was instantly enraged. Ignore him, and don't be courteous to him. The golden-robed fatty looked at Dongbo Shuang and laughed. He is a madman. If you are courteous to him, he will be even more arrogant. Dongbo Shuang laughed. That makes sense. Old Devil Needle immediately became even more enraged and berserk. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Within the hidden world field, he had to issue a challenge. Even if he were to take the initiative to challenge him, Shuechen would simply admit defeat. Normally, the disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple were forbidden from killing each other. Therefore, although he was being scolded, Old Devil Needle could do nothing about it. Haha. Some of the spectating disciples laughed as well. Old Devil Needle swept his gaze across them. Those who dared to laugh at this moment were those who were not afraid of Old Devil Needle. The majority of the disciples were still rather reserved. After all, the path of cultivation was still very long. Old Devil Needle's potential was also rather high. If he were to obtain a high position in the future, it was best not to offend him. Naturally, people like Shuechen and Dongbo Shuang did not place Old Devil Needle in their eyes. Chapter 826. Dongbo Shuang challenged Shuechen, who was ranked 3rd, and only won after a long battle. The main reason was because Dongbo Shuang challenged Shuechen to gain experience and improve himself. Hence, he only managed to achieve victory in the end. Shuechen was rather carefree as well. After all, Dongbo Shuang's spear arts had reached an extremely high level and was of great help to him. After defeating Shuechen, Dongbo Shuang rose to 3rd place. Thereafter, he challenged Rain Swordsman, who was ranked 1st. Rain Swordsman had similarly modified his universe-ranked absolute art and created his own sword arts. His sword arts were more suited for group attacks. Countless raindrops scattered down, and every single raindrop was extremely threatening. Hence, even though Old Demon Needle specialized in group attacks, when he met Rain Swordsman, who specialized even more in group attacks, he was completely suppressed. This battle was the same. Dongbo Shuang was also suppressed. However, he relied on his Mirage Dao and Voidwalker's voidification, as well as his powerful physique to hold on. Eventually, the spirit judged Dongbo Shuang to be defeated. It's over. Forefather Tian Yu sat at the highest point and looked downwards. The ranking tournament had lasted for a total of 12 years, and it had finally come to an end. Currently, the Punishment Hall Master, Ancestor Devil, was personally giving some of the golden-robed disciples items. As for the golden-robed disciples who fell out of the top 10, they had to return their golden-robed and golden-robed disciple token. They would then be given a purple-robed and purple-robed disciple token. Forefather, there weren't many inner hall elders who came to spectate this time. The white-haired man Swordmaster said, "Why? Is the situation in our territory rather bad? They can't leave? Do you need me to send an incarnation over?" "Don't worry." Forefather Tianyu laughed. "Our lineage specializes in the laws and profound, and our incarnations are sufficiently strong. The situation is under control. Just focus on your cultivation, and don't get distracted. The stronger you are, the more help you will be to our Great Void Heaven Temple." Swordmaster nodded. Even though the Great Void Heaven Temple was one of the peak powers, it still had its fair share of troubles. "I hope more of these little guys will rise up." Forefather Tianyu looked downwards. "As long as there are a few more primal chaos experts, the Great Void Heaven Temple will have an easier time. With more primal chaos experts, who knows, someone might be able to take the final step. By then, our Great Void Heaven Temple will be more confident." They chatted casually. After all the items were distributed, Punishment Hall Master Ancestor Devil announced the end of the battle of true God disciples. Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master then stood up and left. Instantly, the group of Hall Masters also left one by one. The Inner Hall Elders and Outer Hall Elders also began to leave. They had all come to watch the battle because this was a grand event held by the Great Void Heaven Temple once every billion years. It was also an opportunity for many experts to gather. In actual fact, they were not too concerned about a real God-level battle. At most, they would take the opportunity to see which youngsters have potential. "I got it." Dongbua Shui Ying's emotions were surging. Earlier on, he had obtained some other items that he was entitled to as a golden-robed disciple from Ancestor Devil. Among which, the most important item was the supplementary spiritual fruit. There were also some other items that were of lesser value that could assist in cultivation. Dongbua Shuang, look at how excited you are. You are only ranked 3rd. If you were ranked 2nd or 1st, I'm afraid you would shout out in excitement, right? Old Devil Needle sneered as he flew past. "Fool Needle, Dongbua was judged to have lost to you because of the rules of the Hidden World field. If you were to fight outside, you wouldn't even be able to injure him. What are you so proud of?" The plump Shuechen sneered. He was the one who targeted Old Devil Needle the most. Old Devil Needle looked at Shuechun with a murderous gaze. "Why? You still want to fight? Come. Bring it on. It seems you want to have a taste of Ancestor Devil's Purgatory Devil Prison," Shuechen said complacently. With his strength, Old Devil Needle wouldn't be able to kill him in a short period of time. Not to mention that he had life-saving talismans and other items. But if he were to fight, he would be violating the rules of the Heaven Palace. That would be disastrous. "Senior Apprentice Brother Dongbua, why don't you come to my cave abode for a drink? The other Senior Apprentice brothers will be coming as well," Shuechen said passionately. "Senior Apprentice Brother Dongbua, let's go together." Zhichuyong, Qiankei Jiaolong, and the others also invited him. This group of disciples who were at the very front also had a good relationship with each other. "All right." Dongbua Shuang nodded as well. The group of disciples were drinking and chatting wantonly. Even the weakest was ranked in the top 30. From this, one could see that the world of cultivators still valued strength. Everyone was chatting, and they even talked about some secrets. Some of them were things that Dongbua Shuang had never heard of even from his revered master Gu Qi. The main reason was that Gu Qi was an ultimate existence, and his status was too high. The information he provided were the more important ones. Instead, some of the more minute secrets were much lesser. These secrets were still relatively important to the current Dongbua Shuang. After the gathering ended, Dongbua Shuang became much closer to this group of people from the same sect. After the gathering ended, Dongbua Shuang directly went to the Palace Hall of Time and chose to cultivate once again at a time flow that was 100 times faster. This time, the planet that Dongbua Shuang descended on was filled with the whistling of many gales. The gales were like blades, but with Dongbua Shuang's realm, he did not have to care about it. He was the only one on this planet. He was not in a rush to break through to the void god realm. Instead, he cultivated by himself and comprehended the apocalyptic second sword. Because during the 12 years of the true god-disciple ranking battle, he had seen too many battles. He had even personally fought a few dozen battles, allowing him to have a new understanding of the operation of the laws and profound mysteries. His comprehension of the apocalyptic second sword had become much deeper, and he felt that he was not far from grasping the apocalyptic second sword. Since that was the case, he was not in a rush to break through. At the ruler realm, learning the apocalyptic second sword was also a form of tempering for himself. A treasured sword would only become sharper after being tempered. Jade would only become a weapon after being sculpted. Even talented cultivators would have to go through layers of tempering before their comprehension abilities would become higher. The Dongbua Xueying in his youth was naturally different from Dongbua Xueying, who comprehended the grade 1 true meaning of the world. Compared to the current Dongbua Xueying, who was about to become a void god, it was even more different. This was still not enough. The stronger he was, the better. Only when he was strong could he easily obtain precious cultivation materials to help his wife Jingqiu and Yu, just like how his teacher Voidwalker Guqi helped a stage 4 world deity good friend of his. Yet he could not allow his good friend to transcend. Naturally, firstly, Guqi was heavily injured and did not deliberately bring along any cultivation materials suitable for a stage 4 world deity. Secondly, cultivation materials were external items. Transcendence still depended on one's own comprehension, but his teacher Guqi could not do it. This gave Dongbua Xueying some pressure, causing him to have higher expectations of himself. At least I have obtained the supplementary spiritual fruit. Dongbua Xueying calmed his heart and began deducing. Time passed. 190 million years had passed on the planet and 9 million years had passed in the outside world. On the floating island at the center, there was a continuous chain of buildings. They were made of wood or stone, and were carved with great care. They were beautiful and magnificent. There were also many flowers surrounding them. Under one of the pavilions, the hunchbacked old man forefather Tian Yu and the white-haired sword master were seated cross-legged facing each other. In front of them was a long table with wine placed on it. There were also incense lit by the side, causing the fragrance to permeate the air. The two of them seemed very quiet. In reality, they had sent their incarnations into the primal chaos void. Within the primal chaos void, the two incarnations were currently sparring. They were the only two final realm existences who comprehended the laws and profound mysteries, and it was hard for them to find an opponent suitable for sparring. Palace Master. Suddenly, a voice sounded by the ears of forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master. Both of them were Palace Masters. Golden-robed disciple Dongbua Xueying is currently at the ruler realm and has comprehended the apocalyptic second sword. The voice of the Palace Hall of Time sounded by their ears. Chapter 827. Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master were slightly startled. They looked at each other with a strand of joy in their eyes. They were clear what comprehending the apocalyptic second sword at the ruler realm meant. It meant that the Great Void Heaven Temple might give birth to another primal chaos existence. The ruler realm was ultimately weak in the laws and profound mysteries. Comprehending the apocalyptic second sword on such a weak and simple foundation of laws and profound mysteries, this required an extremely frightening comprehension ability. The previous person who achieved this was the current Hall Master of the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall in the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Myriad Elephant Palace Hall Master was extremely low profile and focused on cultivation. But amongst the many Hall Masters in the Great Void Heaven Temple, he was ranked in the top 3 and was even stronger than Ancestor Devil. Dongbua Xueying is very young. Forefather Tian Yu grinned. It is rare for him to have such a comprehension ability. Haha, it is rare. True God disciples came generation after generation. Those who could become golden-robed disciples were all outstanding, and it was not hard for them to become void gods. These generations of true God disciples could not even enter the eyes of forefather Tianyu and Sword Master. But a true God disciple like Dongbua Shuang who comprehended the apocalyptic second sword was too rare. He was like a piece of unpolished jade that could release its brilliance with some carving. He is younger than myriad Elephant Palace Hall Master in the past. Sword Master added. With such comprehension ability, it is indeed possible for him to reach the primal chaos realm in the future. Watch over and groom him in the dark. Forefather Tianyu said. We still have to let him temper himself. The moment he finished speaking, the treasure spirit of the Palace of Time sounded once again. Palace Master, the golden-robed disciple Dongbua Shuang is currently breaking through to the Void God realm. He is guiding the primal chaos void energy to descend, and his breakthrough method is the Voidwalker lineage. We can ascertain that he is a Voidwalker. Voidwalker? Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master looked at each other with astonishment. This brat actually cultivated the Voidwalker lineage? Forefather Tianyu was startled. Who is his teacher? The Voidwalker lineage. It belonged to a unique cultivation system. It was unlike the laws and profound mysteries, bloodline cultivation, ancestor mother religion, ancient cultivation, and other systems that were universal. The total number of Voidwalkers in the entire 5 sacred realms, and the Chaos Void was pitifully small. It was not even comparable to the number of ultimate existences. The Voidwalker lineage had 2 cosmos gods, and was considered relatively powerful. No wonder I felt that his body was quite strong in the battle between true divinity disciples. The Sword Master laughed. So it's a Voidwalker. However, he's also very careful. He actually didn't even use his termination energy. The requirements for the inheritance of the Voidwalker are extremely stringent, and there are very few of them. To think that he could obtain one of them. Forefather Tianyu praised. As the cultivation of the Walker's hidden secret became more profound, the Voidwalker's ability to escape would also become stronger. Their bodies would gradually merge with the Void, allowing them to stealthily use the Void to sneak up on their enemies and launch a sneak attack. Their escape speed would also be extremely fast. Inside the Temple of Time, on the planet where the gale was howling, Dongbua Shuang was indeed sitting cross-legged as he attempted to break through. Since he comprehended the apocalyptic second sword, he would first break through to the Void God level. He had long comprehended the 21st level of Walker's hidden secret. At this moment, he was guiding the primal chaos void energy into his body. With the primal chaos void energy as the source, his body was rapidly transforming. Hong hong hong, even though he had just broken through from the 20th level to the 21st level, this was a breakthrough from the true God realm to the Void God realm. His life essence was undergoing a transformation, and the transformation of his body was extremely intense. Every muscle and bone was borrowing the array diagram to absorb the primal chaos void energy. Even the finest particles in his body were transforming into the primal chaos void. His body was more compatible with the primal chaos void than those void creatures. The process of breaking through was extremely long. The termination energy that was filled with sharpness formed in his body. With the termination energy stored within, Dongbua Shuang opened his eyes. His entire body seemed to have become one with the void. He was the void, and the void was him. His overall strength had greatly improved to a new level. He was a member of the Great Void Heaven Temple. In the future, he would have to cultivate the Walker's hidden secret, and it was impossible for him to hide it forever. During the true God-disciple battle with many spectators, it was not suitable for him to reveal himself. But within the Palace Hall of Time, only the treasure spirit of the Palace Hall of Time knew about it. The treasure spirit would report. Those who were qualified to know could be counted with one's fingers. His teacher Gu Qi had mentioned before that he could ask Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master if he wanted to find him in the future. Clearly, Gu Qi trusted Forefather Tianyu and the others. Hence, Dongbua Shuang felt that it was fine for his identity as a Void Walker to be known by the highest level of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Teacher, who exactly did you offend in the past? Dongbua Shuang muttered inwardly. Only after leaving his hometown cosmos and coming to the 7-star oceanic sacred world Did he understand what kind of identity and status his teacher Guqi had? He was one of the final realm existences. That time, he was heavily injured and nearly lost his life. He had even told Shuang not to reveal that his teacher was Guqi. Otherwise he would lose his life. Despite knowing that Shuang was a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple, he still reminded Shuang. Who exactly did he offend? Dongbo Shuang, little doll. A cheerful voice rang out. Forefather. Dongbo Shuang recognized the voice the moment he heard it. He immediately greeted respectfully. This was not the first time he had heard Forefather Tianyu's voice. Who is your Voidwalker lineage's teacher? Forefather Tianyu's voice continued asking. The raging winds continued to howl in the surroundings. Dongbo Shuang could not see Forefather Tianyu, but he still replied respectfully, Guqi. It's him. Whoa, it's actually him? This is going to be troublesome. Remember, do not tell anyone that you are Guqi's disciple. Amen. How about this? I will send a message to the Void Primogenitor and tell him about you. If anyone discovers your identity as a Void Walker, just say that you are the Void Primogenitor's disciple. Forefather Tianyu reminded. Remember, do not say that you are Guqi's disciple. Yes. Dongbo Shuang replied. He could not help but ask, Forefather, does my teacher have a great enemy? Hehe. Guqi is slightly mad. He dares to do anything. Forefather Tianyu said. Regardless, do not get involved with him for now. Otherwise, you can only stay within the Great Void Heaven Temple and not leave. The moment you leave, you will be ambushed. I understand. Dongbo Shuang was inwardly startled. There is also the matter of you comprehending the apocalyptic second sword at the ruler realm. Do not flaunt it to others. It is better for you to remain low profile. Both I and Sword Master think highly of you. Forefather Tianyu instructed. I understand. Dongbo Shuang acknowledged. It was not beneficial for him to flaunt it. Since you have become a void god, then hurry up and become an inner hall elder. Forefather Tianyu instructed. Yes, inner hall elders had an extremely high status within the Great Void Heaven Temple. They were famous across the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void. The reason why they had such a status was because of their corresponding strength. At the entrance of the Palace Hall of Time, time-space distorted. A figure appeared from the distorted time-space. He was none other than the white-robed Dongbo Shuang. He was looking at that towering star pagoda from afar. The star pagoda was the only pagoda that could match the height of the Great Void Palace Hall. It had a unique and important status within the Great Void Heaven Temple. But to enter, one had to be a void god at the very least. According to hearsay, the star pagoda was refined by Lord Lo Chung, and there is one in each of the 6 great holy grounds. Dongbo Shuang thought. According to hearsay, the star pagoda involves a huge secret, and one has to get through the 5th level of star pagoda before one can know about it. The Great Void Heaven Temple had its own rules. Void gods at the origin birth realm had to get through the 3rd level of star pagoda within 10 billion years before they could become an inner hall elder. Currently, there was only a single origin birth realm inner hall elder in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple, because it was too difficult, ridiculously difficult. The others were all Unity Realm inner hall elders. At the Unity Realm, one had to get through the 5th level of Star Pagoda before they could become an inner hall elder. I'll first enter and have a look. What exactly is the huge secret that Teacher Guqi isn't telling me about? Dongbo Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the Star Pagoda. There was only one night watch today. Rest early and watch the women's volleyball finals tomorrow morning. Ashamed previously. I was very excited watching the badminton games. I was so excited that my thighs became numb. Chapter 828. The towering Star Pagoda did not have any protectors guarding its entrance. It did not need any protectors either. Any void god in the Great Void Heaven Temple was qualified to enter. South Dongbo Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the entrance of the Star Pagoda. Look, isn't that Dongbo Shuang? It's senior disciple brother Dongbo Shuang. He flew into the Star Pagoda. He really entered the Star Pagoda. Some of the true God disciples flying within the Great Void Heaven Temple saw Dongbua Shuang flying into the Star Pagoda. They were all startled at that moment. Because of the suppression of the sacred world, it was hard for them to detect the aura of Dongbua Shuang from afar. But the requirement to enter the Star Pagoda was to reach the Void God realm. This was something that could not be violated. He has already become a Void God. Many true God disciples were dumbstruck. He had just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple and had just participated in the true God disciple battle, yet he had already stepped into the Void God realm? But many disciples were still rejoicing. With a golden-robed disciple becoming a Void God, they would have a higher chance of entering the top 10 in the next true God disciple battle. It would be best if 8 or 10 of them could break through at the same time. But breaking through in the laws and profound mysteries was clearly not that easy. Dongbua Shuang flew into the pagoda door of the Star Pagoda. The pagoda door had always been open, and it was dark and unfathomable. As he flew in, he could only feel the surrounding space stacking up. After flying for a while, he saw a vast desolate land. That is, Dongbua Shuang saw a relatively conspicuous mountain peak standing on the desolate land. One side of the mountain peak was cut flat, and there were 3 unfamiliar words written on it. But the meaning contained within the words was instantly understood by Dongbua Shuang. It was the word Star Pagoda. There were even carvings by the side of the mountain wall. Those were carvings of a humanoid creature. He seemed slightly thin and small, and his armor was a close-fitting inner armor. He was currently coldly looking at Dongbua Shuang, who was outside. Boom! At the instant his eyes met with this sculpture, Dongbua Shuang suddenly felt fear in his heart. Even though he could feel a vast and boundless pressure when he saw Forefather Tianyu and the Sword Master, he could still feel it. At the very least, Forefather Tianyu and the Sword Master didn't have any hostility towards him. That kind of pressure was merely caused by the huge difference in their levels of life. But at this moment, Dongbua Shuang was trembling uncontrollably. The carvings on the wall seemed to have come to life. The invisible aura caused Dongbua Shuang to see a shocking scene. This was a skinny and small life form wearing a tight-fitting robe. He had a bald head, and there were many cultivators around him. The aura of these cultivators varied in strength, but the weakest was at the Unity Realm. The strongest 2 were even emitting the aura of Primal Chaos Realm. The 1.5-meter-tall skinny and small life form let out a savage growl. Its body abruptly turned into a lump of black light that shot out in all directions, engulfing everything in its path. All the cultivators, including the 2 Primal Chaos Realm giants, were swept by the black light. All of them were annihilated. Not only were their bodies destroyed, even their weapons and armors were completely shattered. The endless black light immediately gathered back. He turned back into a skinny and small life form. He coldly swept his gaze across the empty surroundings. His eyes did not have any trace of emotion. Closely following that, this scene dissipated. Dongbua Shuang looked at the carvings of the skinny and small life form beside the 3-word Star Pagoda on the wall. The battle scene just now, those cultivators who were massacred, including the 2 Primal Chaos Realm giants. Their panic was so real. It shouldn't be fake. This Star Pagoda was refined by Lord Locheng. There was no meaning in creating a fake piece of information after leaving behind this scene. Almost all the Primal Chaos Realm existences in the 5 great sacred worlds and Primal Chaos Void are famous. As long as I carefully collect the information, I might be able to find out the identity of the 2 Primal Chaos Realm giants that were killed. Dongbua Shuang thought. Even though his teacher Gu Qi had given him some information, it was only about the living Primal Chaos Realm existences. As for the 2 who were massacred in this scene, Dongbua Shuang did not have any information about them. They might have died in battle. Who exactly is this skinny and small life form? Unless this is the huge hidden secret that my teacher Gu Qi mentioned? But I can only find out after passing the 5th level of Star Pagoda. Dongbua Shuang understood that he was still too weak. His teacher Gu Qi might have given him enough information, but there were some secrets that he did not mention. Clearly, he did not want to spoil the mental state of Dongbua Shuang. For instance, the sacred master of the ancient sacred world had enmity with almost all the final realm existences. For instance, the most primitive ancient sacred world was ultimately shattered, or the final realm existences had fallen before. All sorts of secrets were not suitable for someone at his level to know. Who? Dongbo Shuang continued moving forward. He flew past the mountain wall and looked at this vast desolate land. Countless gray lights surged out from underground, condensing into a blurred figure. Finally, it completely took shape. This was a gray-armored warrior about 3 meters tall. There was a unique curved horn embedded on his shoulder armor. His blue-skinned head was currently staring at Dongbo Shuang. Kill him, and you can proceed to the second level. The Star Pagoda Treasure Spirit's voice sounded by the ears of Dongbo Shuang. A trial. Dongbo Shuang carefully observed his opponent. He could not help but feel startled. This gray-armored warrior stood there coldly. The aura he emitted was incompatible with the laws of the world around him. Cultivators like Dongbo Shuang, the ancestor mother religion, ancient cultivation, bloodline cultivation, and other systems were compatible with the laws of the world. But this gray-armored warrior in front of him had an aura that caused the surrounding void to slightly distort. That was the interference of the laws of the world. Amen. Who is my opponent this time? The gray-armored warrior looked at Dongbo Shuang too. His talent allowed him to easily sense the aura of the soul of Dongbo Shuang. So weak. A trash that can't even enter the mainstream. Dongbo Shuang observed for a while before acting. He did not display his slaughter domain, because even though he had become a void god, he relied on the Voidwalker lineage. His understanding of the laws did not improve at all. The slaughter domain was of great help in the true god-disciple battle. But against this opponent in front of him, Dongbo Shuang could faintly feel that it was useless. Go! With a thought from Dongbo Shuang. So. 3 black-robed Dongbo Shuang appeared by the side of that gray-armored warrior. All of them wielded a spear and immediately displayed the strongest killing move he grasped, the apocalyptic second sword. Hoo. In an instant dense spear shadows flashed, and each spear stabbed out 81 times in a row. The 81 spear shadows vaguely formed a huge formation diagram, and 3 spear formation diagrams directly enveloped the gray-armored warrior. The gray-armored warrior stood there unmoving. He allowed the 3 great spear array diagrams to strike on his body, leaving behind some white spots on his gray armor. So weak, the gray-armored warrior said. Dongbo Ying's expression changed. South, the gray-armored warrior moved. He disappeared from his original location. Closely following that, he appeared by the side of Dongbo Shuang. He waved his right hand. There were actually 2 scimitars on each of his arms. As he waved his right hand, the scimitars brought with them a destructive force that swept across the body of Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang's body also dissipated, but in the distance he appeared again. Dongbo Shuang looked solemnly at the gray-armored warrior. Teleportation. The suppression of the sacred world was extremely powerful. Ordinary void walkers at the origin birth stage would not be able to teleport. As a void walker who had stepped into the origin birth stage, Dongbo Shuang was able to teleport. He did not expect his opponent to be able to teleport as well. You can teleport as well? The moment the gray-armored warrior waved his scimitars, he discovered that his attack was merely an afterimage. Dongbo Shuang also understood that his opponent's body was too strong. His attacks with his clones would not be able to threaten his opponent at all. Thus, he immediately wielded his deep violet spear and teleported into close combat. Shwa. The silhouettes of the gray-armored warrior and Dongbo Shuang flickered continuously as they engaged in close combat. Every time their weapons clashed, Dongbo Shuang would only be at a slight disadvantage by relying on his physical strength. His soul aura is very weak, but his strength is close to mine. The cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple are indeed proficient in fighting against those of a higher level. The gray-armored warrior thought to himself. The killing intent in his heart grew even denser. Chapter 829. An hour later, at the entrance of the Star Tower, Dongbo Shuang appeared out of thin air. His face was pale as an evil energy was constantly being expelled from his body. Once it reached the outside world, the gray evil energy would wail and turn into nothingness. I disregarded my injuries and gave it my all, yet I could only injure him. I couldn't kill him at all. Dongbo Shuang looked at the entrance in front of him. The first level of Star Pagoda is so difficult. The apocalyptic second sword was said to be able to allow a ruler realm expert to escape from a unity realm expert. However, his 3 clones apocalyptic second sword couldn't even injure him. According to the intelligence I know, one has to have the strength of an ordinary unity realm expert to pass through the first level of Star Pagoda. Those who can pass through the second level are at the peak of unity realm, and those who can pass through the third level are at the peak of unity realm. Dongbo Shuang pondered. Even though I've grasped the apocalyptic second sword, I'm still far from a unity realm expert. Ordinary void gods have to reach the peak of the unity realm. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. Very difficult. Even in the Great Void Heaven Temple, some of the unity realm experts would only be able to pass through the 3rd or 4th level and become an outer hall elder. Unity realm experts had to get through the 5th level before they could take on the role of an inner hall elder. At the 5th level, they would have reached the boundary of the primal chaos realm. Furthermore, they would have extremely high attainments in certain aspects, allowing them to survive and escape even when facing primal chaos realm giants. For this reason, the status of an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple was extremely high. As an existence that had passed the 5th level, he could easily kill hundreds or thousands of ordinary Unity Realm experts. They could no longer be treated as Unity Realm experts. And in the legends, there were still those at the Unity Realm who could pass through the 6th level. That was someone who could fight against ordinary primal chaos giants. However, this was too rare. It seemed like the Great Void Heaven Temple didn't have a single one. It had happened in history. Of course, there were even more heaven-defying people. Those who passed the 7th level at the Unity Realm were legends in the 6 Holy Lands. In the long history of the 6 Holy Lands, there were only 2 such people. Those 2 had already reached the Primal Chaos Realm and were extremely terrifying existences at the Primal Chaos Realm. Back at the Temple of Time, on a planet filled with beautiful grasslands, Dongbo Shuang was cultivating in seclusion. According to the regulations of the Great Void Heaven Temple, after becoming a void god, one must get through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda within 10 billion years to become an inner hall elder. Otherwise, one must become an outer hall elder and be sent to the primal chaos city. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself. The 10 billion years here were equivalent to the outside world's time. If one had enough origin world stones, one could accelerate the flow of time inside the Temple of Time by thousands, or even tens of thousands of times. With so many origin world stones, the Great Void Heaven Temple would be happy to see such a scene. Void gods would require 5 origin world rocks every 100 million years within the Palace Hall of Time, where time was accelerated by 100 times. If he were to cultivate inside for 10 billion years, that would be a total of 500 origin world rocks. He couldn't afford to play around. I should be able to do it. There is an ordinary void god inner hall elder in this era. If you include history, there are even more. Dongbo Shuang focused on his cultivation. After becoming a void god, he naturally had to properly cultivate. Previously, he had just broken through and went to the Star Pagoda to have a look out of curiosity. Because his fleshy body had broken through to the void god level, his fleshy body would nurture his soul, and his soul would gradually become stronger. The improvement of his soul allowed Dongbo Shuang's comprehension and cultivation to improve by leaps and bounds. Currently, he was focusing on the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple. Naturally, his previous comprehension made him feel that the Tao of Mirage was the greatest, followed by the Tao of Slaughter. Time passed. On this grassland planet, the weeds were growing continuously. They grew taller and taller, until they were even taller than Dongbo Shuang, who was seated cross-legged. In the end they withered, turning the grassland planet into a piece of desolation. On this desolate planet, weeds gradually broke out from the ground and grew once again. Grow, wither. This was a reincarnation cycle. One reincarnation after another. 1,000,000 years, More than 100 million years passed. To mortals, this was an incomparably long time. But to the current Dongbo Shuiying, this was merely a relatively short amount of time he needed to deduce and perfect the Tao of Mirage. 230 million years. This was the amount of time Shuiying needed to break through in his Tao of Mirage, after his soul reached the void god level. The cross-legged seated Dongbo Shuiying opened his eyes. There was an enormous celestial body revolving within his eyes. Hung Long Long, his inner world. It was also undergoing a huge transformation. The originally vast continent-sized inner world was currently distorting. Under the influence of an unseen law, the entire inner world was transforming from a continent into a cosmos sphere. Sphere. The sun star was spherical. The moon star was spherical. The cosmos was spherical. Every part of the spherical surface was absolutely perfect. The distance between them and the central core was absolutely equal. This was a very perfect and high-grade body. When one stepped from the true God ruler to the void God, the inner world of the laws and profound mysteries lineage would undergo a huge transformation. But how it transformed was related to the law system comprehended. The Tao of Mirage would evolve into the Mirage law system. When some broke through to the void god realm, their inner world would become like the material realm. From a huge continent world, it would transform into a large number of land worlds coexisting together. Many land worlds coexisting together to form a single entity. This was also a form of improvement. Another instance, the inner world would transform into the dark abyss. From a huge land world, it would transform into many layers of land worlds, stacking on top of each other until it formed an intestine-shaped entity. Material realm, dark abyss, sun star, moon star. These were existences at the same level, yet they represented different directions. The current evolution of Dongbo Shuiying's inner world was leaning towards the direction of the sun star and moon star. Hung Long Long, finally, the inner world had turned into an enormous planet. It was incomparably huge, comparable to the size of the sun star and moon star. But in terms of power, it was much weaker. The same volume of soil and the same volume of steel were naturally different. Currently, the enormous planet in his body was merely newly born. Mirage planet. Dongbo Shuiying sensed the enormous planet in his body. The current operating law of this planet was the new Mirage law system that Dongbo Shuiying comprehended. This system used the Tao of Mirage as its core and fused together with many other profound mysteries. Even the profound mysteries of the Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple were partially fused into it. It was the same Tao. Different people who walked out of it would be different. In order to reach the void god realm, one only had to create a complete law system. Following that, Dongbo Shuiying's soul improved once again with the Mirage law system as its core. Time passed. After spending 200 million years to break through in the Tao of Mirage, Shuiying had comprehended the apocalyptic second sword and had the experience of breaking through in the Tao of Mirage. Hence, he spent just 150 million years to break through in the Tao of Slaughter. But the final Tao of Ripple was relatively taxing to cultivate. Dongbo Shuiying was not in a rush. Just like his teacher Bloodblade, his breakthrough in the laws and profound mysteries was slow and taxing. Most of his attention was placed on the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. He had comprehended the apocalyptic second sword as a ruler, and now that he had broken through in the Tao of Slaughter, comprehending the apocalyptic third sword, this allowed Dongbo Shuiying to reap many benefits. His Tao of Ripple was also gradually improving. After all, as his horizons and realm became higher, the difficulty in comprehending would naturally decrease. He was not in a rush at all. The Palace Hall of Time could accelerate time by 100 times, allowing him to cultivate leisurely. Chapter 830. After cultivating in seclusion for 1.6 billion years, his wave Tao broke through and reached the void god realm, forming its own system of laws. After cultivating in seclusion for 2.3 billion years, Dongbo Shuiying finally mastered the apocalyptic third sword. This caused Dongbo Shuiying to sigh in shock. He had grasped the second sword when he was in the ruler realm, and had even grasped the slaughter law system after that. Who would have thought that the apocalyptic third sword would take such a long time? After mastering the apocalyptic third sword, the reason why Dongbua Shuang chose to challenge the Star Pagoda, after coming out of closed-door cultivation, was also for the sake of actual combat. This time, his walker's hidden secret had reached the 26th level. Coupled with the apocalyptic third sword, he was indeed able to easily kill the enemies on the first level of the Star Pagoda. That gray-armored creature finally dissipated into a gray radiance and fused with the ground. The Star Pagoda opened a spatial entrance that led to a higher level. Dongbua Shuang stepped into the second level. On the second layer, he still won, ascending to the third floor. Defeated, Dongbua Shuang could only go to the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall and flip through many books at the Void God level. He pondered over them and cultivated within the Palace Hall of Time, working hard to improve himself. But clearly, after comprehending the apocalyptic third sword, it was extremely difficult for him to improve his strength any further. Even if the slaughter domain was perfected, it was still limited in helping him fight at the third level of Star Pagoda. It was obvious that it was extremely difficult to become an inner hall elder at the origin birth stage. While Dongbua Shuang was flipping through manuals and cultivating in the Great Void Heaven Temple, in his homeworld. In his hometown cosmos, the ancestor mother religion had long been destroyed. Being a void god, Bloodblade was unparalleled across the entire cosmos, causing the cosmos to be much more peaceful than in the past. In the starry sky, a young man in tattered robes was seated cross-legged on a damaged meteor. His hair was disheveled, and his fingers were moving about, causing divine markings to ceaselessly appear around him. He was the son of Imperial Monarch Dongbo, who was renowned for his strength and status, and was only inferior to the Bloodblade. Imperial Monarch Dongbo. Dongbo Yu. Boom! The body of the youth in tattered robes trembled slightly. The countless divine runes around him formed an extremely beautiful pattern. It was so perfect. Laws of heaven and earth. Laws of heaven and earth. Dongbua's voice was trembling, and his eyes were filled with surprise and disbelief. I've comprehended it. I've comprehended it. Father, I've comprehended the laws of heaven and earth. Father, I've figured it out. At this moment, Dongbua's jade-like eyes were filled with tears. He, Dongbua Jade, was favored by the heavens. From the moment he was born, there was a giant behind him that could support the entire world, Dongbua Shuang. When he was born in the physical world of the Xia people, his father was the strongest expert in the entire history of the Xia people. He was a hero who saved the entire Xia people, and was also the leader of the Xia people's world. He, Dongbua, was born with the strongest backing. He and his sister were carefree. Although their parents were strict with them, they did not feel pressured at all. In the world of the Xia people and the Crimson Rock Mountain, his father had caused huge waves in the deity world and the dark abyss, and his strength and status continued to rise. Although he had inherited the outstanding talent of his parents, the best resources, and even the personal guidance of his parents, he was still stuck at the limits of the deity realm. It was only a setback in his relationship that caused him to transform and step into the world deity realm. After that, his cultivation speed slowed down once more. His father became the new third ancestor. He even became a ruler. His strength and status were so high that he was second only to Bloodblade. Even Bloodblade was Dongbua Jade's grandmaster. He had extremely good conditions, and even had the opportunity to enter the Devil Mountain cosmos to cultivate. Even the third prince, Jiao Yunlu, who had an extremely high status in the Devil Mountain cosmos, had given his father face and nurtured him with all his might. Even after billions of years, he was still stuck at the stage for world deity realm. His father, Dongbua Shuang, originally had a bright future ahead of him. He was the most talented cultivator in the entire cosmos, and his cultivation speed was much faster than Bloodblade and the others. There was still a very long time before this epic ended. As long as he cultivated step by step, with his talent, it would not be hard for his father to step into the so-called Void God Unity realm. When he went to the Holy Ground, the Great Void Heaven Temple, he might be able to improve further. and there was a high chance that he would become a primal chaos realm giant. But, for him, for his mother, Jing Qiu, and for his father, Dongbo Shuiying, who could not bear to see the souls of his loved ones dissipating, chose to leave the cosmos and enter the vast primal chaos void. Jing Qiu was not willing. He, Dongbo Jade, was not willing either. They could face death calmly, but his father was not willing to watch helplessly. Thus, his father did not hesitate to enter the primal chaos void despite the danger, embarking on a journey to the distant sacred world. How long was this journey? Could his father reach the sacred world? If he reached the sacred world, it was said that the sacred world was 1,000,000,000,000 times stronger than the cosmos. There were many experts and dangers. Would his father be safe as he fought with his mother, Jing Qiu, for Dongbo Jade? He was afraid. Afraid that his father would die. Afraid that his father would die in the primal chaos void. Afraid that he would die in the sacred world. There were too many possibilities. Everything made Dongbo Jade afraid. When his father was shielding him from the wind and rain, he had never felt it, because he was used to it ever since he was born. His father was that towering figure. But now that his father left the cosmos and embarked on a journey filled with danger, he was truly afraid. He was filled with regret. He regretted not transcending. Thus, he became even more frenzied in his cultivation. He did not wish to disappoint his father. Within the vast river of time, the undulating figure was none other than Dongbo Jade. Now, with the help of the laws of the heaven and earth, that figure directly flew upwards. Although the river water was dragging him, it was unable to stop him. It merely caused some waves and Dongbo Jade flew out of the river of time. I transcended, father. Dongbo Jade stood on the meteorite and muttered. Dongbo Jade monarch residence. Dongbo Jade saw his mother, Jing Qiu. You are. Jing Qiu looked at her son and revealed a look of joy. She could tell with a single glance that what her father monarch Imo Shui desired, what she herself had even reincarnated for, transcending. And now, her son Dongbo Jade had achieved it. Mother. Dongbo Jade revealed a smile. Following that, the smile disappeared. In his heart, there was indeed not much joy, because at this moment he wanted his father to know. Good. Jing Qiu's face was filled with joy. She had cultivated for much longer than her son, and had almost lost all hope of transcending. But seeing her son transcend, she was still filled with boundless joy. This is great. If your father knew, he would definitely be very happy. But father isn't here, Dongbo Jade said. Jing Qiu was slightly startled. She could feel her son's emotions. She also raised her head and looked at the starry sky above Dongbo monarch residence. Outside the starry sky, outside the cosmos, where was her husband? Was he still well? I wonder where father is now and how he is doing. Dongbo Jade said softly. Chapter 831. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying raised his head and looked at the towering star tower. The star tower was emitting a vast pressure that spread out in all directions. Dongbo Shuiying took a step and entered the spatial passageway at the entrance of the star tower. The space was distorted. This time, when Dongbo Shuiying was flying, the spatial passageway became even more distorted. When Dongbo Shuiying flew out, he saw a vast desert world. This was the third level of the star tower. Hua, vast gray light surged out from the depths of the desert, condensing into many figures. In the blink of an eye, there were over 100 gray armored beings standing there. Some of them were tall and sturdy, some were skinny, and some even had 6 arms. Even their weapons were divided into different types. However, the common point was that they were all wearing gray armor, and there was a curved horn embedded on their shoulder armor. The 100 gray armored beings stared at Dongbo Shuiying. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying looked at the opponents in front of him. If there was only one of these gray armored beings, he would be able to deal with it easily. However, the moment there were 10 of them, they would be able to faintly form a formation, causing their strength to rise. The moment there were 100 of them, their strength would rise once again. Furthermore, they possessed evil energy that even the operating laws despised. As long as they were attacked, it would invade their bodies. If it was a small amount, they would be able to expel it quickly. However, if there were too many of them, it would be troublesome. Previously, when he was defeated, it was all thanks to the formation spirit of the Star Tower, helping him to suppress it. Otherwise, the large amount of evil energy would be enough to kill him. This time it's different. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang did not take out his void god weapon this time. Instead, he merely stood on the desert. Go! He pointed with his finger. A large amount of termination energy flew out from his body. Densely packed dark purple termination energy flew out from the surface of his body. Under the control of Dongbua Shuiying's powerful willpower, he directly activated the power of laws. Every dark purple termination energy flew at high speed and actually turned into many dark purple fishes. There were a total of 1,000 dark purple fishes. In an instant, they covered the sky as they flew towards those gray-armored beings. Kill! The bodies of the hundreds of gray-armored creatures were surrounded by evil gray energy. Their energy merged into one, and their auras were much stronger. All of them disappeared in an instant, teleporting. Dongbua Shuang teleported away as well. Hua hua hua, thousands of dark purple fishes dove into the void and began their attack. As Dongbua Shuang had reached the 28th level of Walker's hidden secret, his control over the void was much stronger than these gray-armored creatures. One after another, the dark purple fishes rapidly chased after the gray-armored creatures. These gray-armored creatures coldly defended themselves, but the deep purple fish were extremely agile and fast. They barely managed to block a few, but most of the fish instantly pierced into their bodies. In the past, their bodies were tough, and Dongbua Shuiying's group attack was useless against them. But this time, their bodies were like broken cloth bags. Xiao xiao xiao. The densely packed violet fishes were crazily piercing through their bodies. They were constantly shuttling back and forth. Even when they were exhausted, Shuiying would continue releasing the termination energy, turning it into violet fishes to replenish their losses. Under the frenzied attacks, these gray-armored life forms let out furious roars, yet they were completely suppressed. Just like that, their injuries worsened. 10 breaths later, they finally dissipated. The gray light fused back into the great earth. We won! Dongbua Shuiying revealed a grin. He finally won. He got through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda as a void god at the origin birth realm. That was too difficult. Ever since the end of the true god-disciple battle, he had been in closed-door cultivation for 5.8 billion years. Actually, he had grasped the apocalyptic third sword at 2.3 billion years ago. He originally wanted to fuse the apocalyptic third sword with his Tao of Ripple to create the 10th volume of Wind Ripple Path. But after trying, he discovered that it was too difficult. Thus, as he pondered over it, he tried simplifying the apocalyptic third sword into a group attack. He was indeed weak in terms of group attacks. And to control a large number of termination energy to unleash a killing move at the same time, the apocalyptic third sword required a huge amount of effort. He could at most let 5 termination energy unleash the apocalyptic third sword at the same time. But this was not enough. There were too few of them, and the enemies could completely defend against them. Even if they attacked one at a time, the energy of those gray-armored creatures could allow the injured to recover rapidly. Thus, he had to kill them all. He had to use a large-scale technique. Thus, he simplified the apocalyptic third sword. Simplifying it was much simpler than fusing the Tao of Ripple. But Dongbua Shuiying still had to make it easier to unleash it. The larger the scale, the better. This was much harder. He simplified it time after time, using the original concept of the apocalyptic third sword as the foundation. He kept simplifying it, trying his best to make it as simple as possible. Finally, he created the current group attack killing move, Fish Dragon Kill. Time to have a look at the 4th level. The white-robed Dongbua Shuiying flew into the sky once again. He flew along the huge hole in the sky and entered the 4th level of Star Pagoda. That was a vast mountain world. There was only a single life form, wearing a blood-colored armor. This time, Dongbua Shuiying used his Fish Dragon Kill to attack the other party. He also used his Void God weapon to fight in close combat, yet he could barely injure the other party. Nevertheless, he was heavily injured by the sinister blood energy. Fortunately, The Star Pagoda Array spirit helped him to suppress and expel it. I'm still too weak. Dongbo Shuiying understood. Being a void god at the origin birth realm, it was amazing for him to kill his way to the 3rd level. He was still far from reaching the 4th level. It is time for me to go out and have a walk. Dongbo Shuiying knew that he had reached a bottleneck, and it was hard for him to improve any further. It would be hard for him to improve even after a few billion years, unless he used a longer period like 10 times the time to comprehend. But time was too extravagant for him. The Palace of Time might be able to accelerate time, but the price was huge. At the origin birth realm, cultivating for 5.8 billion years was equivalent to 58 million years in the outside world. But he had spent 29,000 contribution points, which was equivalent to 3 origin world rocks. He did not have many treasures, and could not afford to waste time here. Dang dang dang, the bell of the Great Void Palace Hall sounded. It reverberated across the entire Great Void Holy Ground. As long as they were in the Great Void Heaven Temple, many inner hall elders and hall masters were rushing towards the Great Void Palace Hall. Even many outer hall elders and true god disciples who were not qualified to go look towards the Great Void Palace Hall with bewilderment. What was going on? What major event had happened? Every time the bell of the Great Void Palace Hall rang, it would signify an extremely important event. Within the Great Void Palace Hall, at the highest point, Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master were seated side by side. On both sides of the stairs, there were 8 hall masters seated there. On both sides of the Great Palace Hall, there were many inner hall elders. At this moment, their gazes landed on a white-robed young man standing at the center of the Great Palace Hall. The white-robed Dongbo Shuiying stood there. Today, I have gathered everyone here because my Great Void Heaven Temple has a joyous occasion. Forefather Tian Yu chuckled. Dongbo Shuiying has already gotten through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda. From today onwards, he will be the 39th Inner Hall Elder of my Great Void Heaven Temple. Inner Hall Elder? The higher-ups of the Great Void Heaven Temple present, including the Hall Masters, looked at Dongbo Shuiying with shock. How long had it been? It had only been 58 million years since the true god-disciple battle. Previously, Dongbo Shuiying was just a true god ruler, but now he had become an inner hall elder? Even though they could see that Dongbo Shuiying had cultivated for more than 5 billion years, and they reckoned that he had relied on the Palace of Time. But this was still a short period of time. Furthermore, even though the Great Void Heaven Temple had a rule stating that void gods at the origin birth realm could become an inner hall elder as long as they got through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda within 10 billion years, most cultivators would rely on the Palace of Time to cultivate for a longer period. And without a doubt, the difficulty of getting through the 3rd level at the origin birth realm was much harder than getting through the 5th level at the Unity realm. Previously, there was only one inner hall elder in the Great Void Heaven Temple who was at the origin birth realm. It was certain that a monster who could get through the 3rd level at the origin birth realm would be able to easily get through the 5th level once he reached the Unity realm. Finally, we have another comrade, Elder Dongbo. They looked at Dongbo Shuiying. Being a holy ground, the Great Void Heaven Temple only had 38 inner hall elders in the past. Naturally, those who died in battle were not counted. Dongbo Shuiying, from today onwards, you will be an inner hall elder of my Great Void Heaven Temple. I hope that you will protect the rules of my Great Void Heaven Temple together with other disciples, and protect the only holy ground of my laws and profound mysteries lineage. Forefather Tian Yu smiled as he looked below. At the same time, he waved his hand, causing 3 golden lights to fly towards Dongbo Shuiying. Dongbo Shuiying waved his hand before keeping them. He respectfully replied, Dongbo Shuiying will definitely do his best. End of this chapter, ***. Chapter 832. Many of the true God disciples and outer hall elders in the Great Void Heaven Temple were looking at the majestic light illuminating the entire Great Void Holy Ground. They were all very curious as to what had happened to gather the upper echelons of the Great Void Holy Ground. Very quickly, some of them who were well informed received the news. Dongbua Shuang has become an inner hall elder? One spread to 10 to 100. At the same time, there were also inner hall elders and hall masters who informed their subordinates, or disciples of this news. How long has he been cultivating? He just came to the Great Void Heaven Temple not long ago. It hasn't even been 100 million years since the battle of the true God disciples ended, and he has already become an inner hall elder? As expected of a genius cultivator, who came from the same universe as the fiend ancestor and the sword master. In just a short period of time, he immediately transformed into an inner hall elder after reading countless manuals in the Myriad Temple. Awesome. A void god at the origin birth realm has to pass through the third level of Star Pagoda. It is said that some of the Unity Realm Outer Hall elders need to cultivate for a few days before they can pass the third level. This news shocked many true God disciples and Outer Palace elders. This was an achievement that they could only look up to. On Fool's Island, some of the Golden Robe disciples also came out of the cave to look in the direction of the Great Void Temple. They were also curious about what had happened, and soon they received the news. Senior brother Dongbo has become an inner palace elder? So fast. These Golden Robe disciples had fought with Dongbua Shuang before, and they were all shocked and envious at the same time. I've always felt that senior brother Dongbo is quite amazing. He just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple, but his strength is already close to senior brother Rain Swordsman's. Junior disciple sister Qianke chuckled. Not too long later, disciple brother Dongbo has become a void god, and even an inner hall elder. Sister Qianke, I told you to get closer to Dongbua. Are you regretting it now? The chubby Shuechen laughed. Junior sister Qianke's blonde hair draped over her shoulders. She was dressed in a bright yellow robe and looked elegant and graceful. She only smiled when she heard Shuechen's teasing. Shuechen turned his head to look at Old Devil Needle and shouted, "Old Devil Needle, weren't you very arrogant during the true God disciple battle?" Was he pleased? Senior disciple brother Dongbo did not place you in his eyes at all. Currently, senior disciple brother Dongbo has not only become a void god, he is also an inner hall elder. I think it is impossible for you to become an inner hall elder in this lifetime. Old Devil Needle snorted coldly, then turned around and entered his cave abode. Haha. You can't even say a single word after hearing what I said. Shuechen laughed out. Look, senior apprentice brother Dongbua has come out. Many true God disciples and outer hall elders from all over the Great Void Heaven Temple saw this. They saw figures flying out from the entrance of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang looked as calm as ever. He was chatting with the other inner hall elders as they flew away. Inner hall elder. When will I ever be able to become an inner hall elder in this lifetime? The chubby Shuechen muttered as he watched from afar. His voice was filled with envy. It was too difficult. It was practically impossible for an origin birth realm expert to get through the third level of Star Pagoda. Passing the fifth floor at the Unity Realm? What did the fifth floor signify? Usually, only primal chaos realm giants could get through the higher sixth floor. Hence, those who could get through the fifth floor were existences who had reached the threshold of the primal chaos realm. Even among the Unity Realm experts nurtured by the Great Void Heaven Temple, only a very few could do it. The rest could only become outer hall elders. During the days when Dongbua Shuang just became an inner hall elder, the other inner hall elders invited him to attend many gatherings. But during the gatherings, Dongbua Shuang vaguely felt that something was amiss. These inner hall elders seemed to be hiding something from me? I asked them, yet they said that I would naturally know after passing the fifth floor of Star Pagoda. Dongbua Shuang felt puzzled. Other than the gatherings with his good friends, Dongbua Shuang had also returned the Golden Robe Disciple Robe and Command Token. Being an inner hall elder, Forefather Tian Yu had bestowed 3 items to him back in the Great Void Palace. The robe, the Command Token and the Communication Talisman, of which, the Command Token that represented his identity as an inner hall elder was also a life-saving treasure. It was even more precious than the Black Gourd. At the same time, after becoming an inner hall elder, he was bestowed with 1,000,000 contribution points. He could exchange for all sorts of precious treasures in the Great Void Heaven Temple, that could aid his cultivation. As for obtaining more contribution points, treasures, he would have to accept missions. In the future, be it to refine stronger weapons or other needs, he would have to fight for it himself. Amen. Within the Myriad Elephant Palace, Dongbo Shueing was flipping through the books on the 4th floor. One had to become an inner hall elder to be qualified to enter the 4th floor. The 4th floor was much more important. There were large amounts of books placed here, and every single one of them was extremely precious. The original copies of Cosmos ranked absolute arts were placed here. Being an inner hall elder, he could choose any Cosmos ranked absolute art. Meow. A black cat leaped onto the bookshelf and laid down. It looked down at Dongbo Shueing. Dongbo Shueing, don't be greedy. Every single Cosmos ranked absolute art requires a huge amount of effort to comprehend. Being greedy might instead affect your cultivation. Many thanks. Dongbo Shueing chuckled. He discovered it too. There were a total of 9 original Cosmos ranked absolute arts placed here, and 2 of them were related to the Tao of Slaughter. One was the less than 13 apocalyptic swords, and the other was the waning moon sword scripture. As Dongbo Shueing flipped through the books, he discovered that there were many contradictions between the two. He understood that if his realm was sufficiently high, he might be able to accommodate both of them. But he was ultimately at the origin birth realm, and it was too taxing for him to face absolute arts created by Cosmos gods. I'll just focus on these 2. Dongbo Shueing picked up another limestone book. The surface of the limestone had ripples on it. He focused on the 2 arts. One was the less than 13 apocalyptic swords, which he had spent a huge amount of effort on. The other was an absolute art related to the Tao of Ripple. It was an absolute art left behind by the primogeniture of the Laws and Profound Mysteries lineage, Ancestor Song, the plate ripple diagram. Dongbo Shueing actually wanted to find a Cosmos ranked absolute art related to the Tao of Mirage, but it's a pity that he did not have any. Since ancient times, there were only 3 cultivators who reached the final realm in the Laws and Profound Mysteries lineage: Primogenitor Ancestor Song, Forefather Tianyu, and Swordmaster. None of them cultivated the Tao of Mirage. Dongbo Shueing, come over here. A cold voice transmitted directly into the ears of Dongbo Shueing. Ancestor Devil? Dongbo Shueing placed down the limestone scripture that had ripples on it before rushing downstairs. The black cat on the bookshelf watched as Dongbo Shueing left. Its eyes were filled with a strand of expectation. Such a young inner hall elder. It is worth having a good look at him. Punishment Hall. It was situated alone on a huge floating island. This place was emitting a cold, killing aura. Ordinary disciples did not dare to approach this place. Dongbo Shueing turned into a stream of light and landed on the island. He then rushed towards the punishment hall. Within the punishment hall, there was only a male wearing a luxurious black robe seated cross-legged at the highest point of the punishment hall. His expression was still cold. He merely opened his eyes and looked at Dongbo Shueing. Ancestor Devil. Dongbo Shueing immediately bowed after entering. You have to temper yourself outside of cultivation. Where do you plan to go next? Ancestor Devil indifferently asked. I have not thought about it. Dongbo Shueing replied. Ancestor Devil nodded. My great void heaven temple doesn't have a good relationship with the ancient sacred world and the ancestor mother world. Hence, before you reach the unity realm, it is best for you not to leave the 7-star oceanic sacred world. How about this? My great void heaven temple has constructed 12 primal chaos cities in the 7-star oceanic sacred world to defend the various regions. You can head to one of the cities to defend. Even though there are the incarnations of the Hall Master and other elders there will still be plenty of killing to temper you. Alright, I will choose a primal chaos city to defend. Dongbo Shueing said. Actually, he had already considered this problem. Ancestor Devil was concerned about his matter. It was also because the status of the Sword Master was too high within the Great Void Heaven Temple. He would not bother about his matters. He could faintly be considered part of Ancestor Devil's faction. Ancestor Devil was too cold and ruthless. In addition, the time he spent in the Great Void Heaven Temple was too short. Hence, The inner hall elders were not willing to rely on him. Most of the subordinates of Ancestor Devil were outer hall elders. He might be the only inner hall elder. Naturally, he had his own principles when doing things. It was impossible for him to break his bottom line. But the Great Void Heaven Temple had strict rules. Ancestor Devil could be considered to have abided by the rules in the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was much better than when he was in his hometown Cosmos. Today, a new chapter would begin. Star. Chapter 833. Even though he had decided to go to a primal chaos city to defend, Dongbo Shuang wasn't in a rush to leave. After all, he had just become an inner hall elder, and he still had many valuable books to study in the 4th level of the Wanxiang Palace. Once he was stationed in a primal chaos city, he might not be back for a long time. Therefore, Dongbo Shuang stayed in the Great Void Heaven Temple for another 20 million years. Apart from reading books in the Myriad Elephant Palace, he spent most of his time cultivating in the Palace of Time. The Palace of Time had lasted for nearly 2 billion years, and he had used up 10,000 merit points equivalent to an Origin World Stone. This caused some of the inner hall elders to say, "Elder Dongbo, you've been cultivating for a long time. Why do you keep cultivating in the Temple of Time? Becoming an inner hall elder will give you 1 million merit points. This is a one-time reward. If you want more in the future, you'll have to fight for it yourself. Resources are precious, and you can't waste them like this." Dongbo Shuang smiled, but did not explain. Time. He had spent as much time as possible in the Temple of Time. Now both the 13 Armageddon swords and the plate ripple diagram had reached a bottleneck. The reason why he had spent nearly 2 billion years in the Temple of Time was mainly because he had recently obtained the cosmic level secret art, plate ripple diagram. Fortunately, his current realm was quite high, so he could cultivate it to a very high level in such a short time. Whoosh! Dongbo Shuang turned into a stream of light and flew on the floating continent in the center. Soon, he entered an ancient palace that occupied a huge area, the Palace of Chaos. A female void god immediately appeared at the entrance of the Primal Chaos Palace Hall to welcome him. Elder Dongbo, this female void god respectfully greeted. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Void gods who could stay within the Great Void Heaven Temple for long periods, other than the Hall Master and the Inner Hall Elders, were those in charge of miscellaneous matters. After all, it was impossible for the Inner Hall Elders to personally handle these matters, right? The Inner Hall Elders were the upper echelons of the sect, and were extremely powerful. They disdained such trifling matters. Usually, those who were in charge of trivial matters were the Outer Hall Elders, who were valued by the Hall Masters. They also had another name, Inner Hall Deacons. A deacon was a person who did things. The Inner Palace represented that one could live in the Great Void Heaven Temple. As for the Outer Hall Elders, they could only come if they wanted to challenge the Star Pagoda, cultivate in the Palace of Time, or send some new true god disciples over for official business. Normally, they wouldn't be able to stay there, because there weren't any abodes left for them in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Within the Great Void Heaven Temple, there were only slightly more than 100 void gods in the Inner Hall. I'm heading to Tianshui City, Dongbo Shuang said. Elder Dongbo, please. The female void god led the way in front. Flying along the winding corridor, they soon saw a huge primal chaos maelstrom passage in front of them. This primal chaos maelstrom passage was guarded by a void god and 2 puppets. This is the entrance to the passage that leads to the Celestial Water City, the female void god said. Dongbo Shuang nodded and flew towards the chaos whirlpool. Hong, the female void god, and the other void god by her side looked at Dongbo Shuang with envy as he directly entered. Being Inner Hall Deacons, they were only qualified to head to other primal chaos cities when they had official business. Otherwise, they would have to pay a high toll if they wanted to head there for personal matters. But the identity of an Inner Hall Elder was different, and the privileges he had were much higher than them. Elder Dongbo has not been in the Great Void Heaven Temple for long, yet he has become an Inner Hall Elder. The female void god muttered. How can we compare with him? He has become an inner hall elder at the origin birth realm. That's too formidable. Furthermore, he has ancestor devil and sword master behind his back. The void god by the side said. He was powerful and had great potential. Furthermore, he had the powerful support of ancestor devil and sword master. These inner hall deacons could only look up to him. Hong Long Long, within the primal chaos whirlpool, Dongbo Shuang was constantly flying. This primal chaos whirlpool passage was slightly similar to a cosmos passage. The 12 primal chaos cities constructed by the Great Void Heaven Temple are spread across approximately 1/3 of the entire 7-star oceanic sacred world. The distance between each city is extremely far. Even a primal chaos realm giant would have to spend 100,000 years or so to travel from one primal chaos city to another. Dongbo Shuang sighed. The sacred world was too big. The suppression of the laws was also too strong, making it hard for them to travel. For the sake of increasing their control, the Great Void Heaven Temple did not care about the price to construct 12 fixed primal chaos passages that connected the primal chaos cities and the Great Void Heaven Temple. After flying for the time taken to brew a cup of tea in the primal chaos passage, Dongbo Shuang finally saw the exit of the passage. Hong. Flying out of the primal chaos whirlpool, Dongbo Shuang saw a large group of void gods gathered within the huge palace hall. With a glance, there were more than 1,000 of them, and some of them had exceptionally powerful auras. Greetings, Elder Dongbo. The two leading figures with extraordinary auras immediately bowed. The others behind them also bowed in unison. Is it Elder Chun Wu and Elder Qian Yu? Dongbo Shuang chuckled. Elder Chun Wu was a male wearing a tall crown and loose green robe. Elder Qian Yu was a white-haired old man who was casually dressed. Being an inner hall elder, Dongbo Shuang could obtain a large amount of intelligence through the communication talisman. Naturally, he had obtained intelligence on the Celestial Water City. The Celestial Water City was one of the 12 primal chaos cities. The one with the highest status was the incarnation of Celestial Water Hall Master, who was responsible for guarding the primal chaos city. But given the identity of Celestial Water Hall Master, he would naturally have more important matters to attend to. Hence, his incarnation would usually be in deep sleep. Only during crucial moments would the will of Celestial Water Hall Master descend. Only then would his incarnation wake up. Hence, even though it was said that the incarnation of Celestial Water Hall Master had the highest status on the surface, he rarely appeared. Next was the Society of Elders. The Society of Elders was responsible for handling all sorts of matters within the Celestial Water City. The Society of Elders were all Outer Hall Elders. Those who could become Outer Hall Elders might not be the core elites of the Great Void Heaven Temple, but they had obtained the trust of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, they were sufficiently powerful to the outside world. Beneath the Society of Elders was the Deacon Society. They were all Outer Hall deacons. Simply speaking, they were thugs. Many void gods who wanted to hug the thick thigh of the Great Void Heaven Temple were willing to become deacons, because deacons had contribution points too. In the future, they would have the chance to browse through precious books and exchange for treasures. However, the merit points given to the deacons were very few. Since the Outer Hall Elders were the ones in charge of everything, the Outer Hall Elders would take the majority of the merit points for every mission, and the deacons would split the remaining merit points. Even so, there were still a large group of Outer Hall deacons. The Celestial Water City had a total of 61 Outer Hall Elders, and 2 of them were at the Unity Realm. There were 59 at the Origin Birth Realm. Most Origin Birth Realm Outer Hall Elders had the combat power of an ordinary Unity Realm expert. Of the 2 Unity Realm Outer Hall Elders, Elder Chun Wu had passed through the 4th level of Star Pagoda and was practically unparalleled amongst Unity Realm experts. After all, those heaven-defying existences at the 5th level of Star Pagoda had reached the threshold of the Primal Chaos Realm, and ordinary people could not meet them. As for Elder Qian Yu, he had passed through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda and was also at the peak of the Unity Realm. He could easily kill a large group of Unity Realm experts. In the Great Void Heaven Temple, Unity Realm Void Gods were usually at the 3rd or 4th level strength. It was too difficult for them to pass through the 5th level. And the moment they did so, they would be able to ascend the heavens with a single step and become an Inner Hall Elder. Elder Dongbo actually knows our names. It is our honor. The white-haired old man, Elder Qianyu, immediately chuckled. Knowing that Elder Dongbo is stationed in our celestial water city, Brother Qianyu and I are relatively happy and have prepared a banquet. I hope that Elder Dongbo will give us some face. Elder Chunwu added. Even though it was Dongbo Shuiying who came, it caused the 2 highest statuses in the celestial water city, Elder Chunwu and Elder Qianyu, to have an additional Inner Hall Elder. But the 2 of them were not angry. Instead, they were happy, because they were clear that a monster who could pass through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda, at the Origin Birth Realm, would be able to reach the 5th level easily the moment he reached the Unity Realm. Furthermore, Dongbo Shuiying had cultivated for such a short period, and it was likely that he would become a Hall Master in the future. For such an existence to be willing to guard the Celestial Water City for a period of time, it would be a good opportunity for the 2 of them to form a relationship with Dongbo Shuiying. The level of their combat power was awkward. After all, they had cultivated for trillions of years. Reaching their level, it was hard for them to improve further. They could not even find an opportunity to hug onto a thick thigh. It was highly possible that Dongbo Shuiying would become a thick thigh in the future. How could these old fellows who had lived for an unknown period miss out on this opportunity? Alright, then I'll have to trouble Elder Chunwu and Elder Qianyu, Dongbo Shuiying said. It was sufficient for him to treat Elder Chunwu and Elder Qianyu politely. Even if he treated them coldly, Elder Chunwu and Elder Qian, you could only endure it. As for the other outer hall elders and deacons, they did not need to care too much. Chapter 834. The Celestial Water City occupied an area of 50 million kilometers. Being one of the 12 primal chaos cities protected by the Great Void Heaven Temple, it was extremely safe. Many cultivators lived within. There were even many cities in the wilderness outside the primal chaos city, with many living beings living there. Because being close to the Celestial Water City represented relative safety. The reason why the Celestial Water City was only 50 million kilometers wide was because the primal chaos incarnation could only protect a limited area. Under the law suppression of the sacred world, it was hard for the primal chaos incarnation to save someone from too far away. Dongbo Shuiying's residence occupied an area of 500 kilometers. It was considered quite extravagant within the Celestial Water City. Time passed. Dongbo Shuiying would occasionally walk around the Celestial Water City by himself, visiting some restaurants to eat some unique delicacies, while listening to the discussions of the surrounding cultivators. The taste is really not bad. Dongbo Shuiying was drinking wine and eating desserts. He was enjoying himself. The Celestial Water City, spanning 50 million kilometers, seemed very small to powerful cultivators. But in reality, there were still many restaurants that could remain in the Celestial Water City for a long time, and that cultivators were willing to come and eat there. All of them were unique. Dongbo Shuiying had eaten for 3 months before eating a small portion of the food available in the Celestial Water City. Dang! A sound came from the communication talisman. Dongbo Shuiying immediately checked. B29 City, west of the city, the Golden Wing Nation King is requesting for help. He is suffering from a large-scale devouring attack by at least 10 ordinary void gods. This was a request for help. Dongbo Shuiying immediately stood up. He placed a violet metallic piece on the table before leaving the restaurant. The restaurants in the Celestial Water City were usually willing to collect precious materials. At the very least, it would be deity crystals. If it were deity crystals, the amount would be huge. At least 1 million deity crystals. A little attendant in the restaurant saw the violet metallic piece placed by Dongbo Shuiying on the table with a glance. He immediately walked over and received it with joy. Violet Snow Rock? He is indeed a void god. His actions are extraordinary. Dongbo Shuiying had once obtained a violet snow rock mineral vein when he killed some void creatures in the 200 over primal chaos lands. Whoosh! Dongbo Shuang disappeared from the Tianshui city and executed the void evasion. Now that he had reached the 28th level of the Walker's hidden secret, his movement speed was much faster. In just a few breaths of time, he arrived at the Tianshui city's spatial transfer array. He waited a good while. A team formed by 2 Outer Hall elders and 30 Outer Hall deacons appeared here. They were one of the teams that were on duty and had received orders to head to the Golden Wing Nation. Elder Dongbo, the 2 Outer Hall elders, and the 30 Outer Hall deacons were shocked and hastily bowed respectfully. Dongbo Shuang nodded his head. "You are going to the Golden Wing Nation?" Replying to Elder Dongbo, "We are indeed going to the Golden Wing Nation." One of the greenhorn youths said respectfully, "I'll go with you guys. Let's go." Dongbo Shuang instructed, "Don't worry, this little bit of merit points is nothing to me. A dignified inner hall elder is going on this kind of mission? As long as they don't split the merit points between us, it will be fine." The 2 Outer Palace elders and the large group of Outer Palace deacons thought to themselves, this was a rather ordinary mission, and the reward was only 1 merit point. This 1 merit point was split between the 2 Outer Palace elders and the large group of Outer Palace deacons, who still had to split it further. Don't think that it was a small amount. Over the years, they had been accumulating missions. It wasn't hard for an Outer Hall elder to gather 10,000 merit points. Dongbo Shuang and the team entered the teleportation array. Usually, the teleportation array would only be used once a year, unless someone was willing to pay a huge price to use it alone. However, for Dongbo Shuang and the rest to carry out the mission, they had to use the teleportation array immediately. Furthermore, it was free of charge. Under the suppression of the laws of the sacred world, even if the teleportation array was created by the palace lords and hall masters, it could only teleport a certain distance each time. Elder Dongbo, this is the B26 city. They arrived at a city that was just 50,000 kilometers in size. This city was filled with many arrays that were constantly being activated and enveloped the entire city. It had a grand power, and there were even Outer Hall elders leading their subordinates to guard the city. Amen. Dongbo Shuang nodded. The sacred world was too big. The region that the Celestial Water City could affect was covered by the teleportation cities. Even though there were a total of 100 cities around the Celestial Water City, it could only affect a small portion of the region. The regions further away were all barren. Even with the wealth of the Great Void Heaven Temple, they were willing to construct a teleportation city that could only cover a small portion of the region. There were even vaster regions that were occupied by primal chaos giants, ruling over a region. Rushing, this was an extremely difficult matter in the sacred world. Weaker cultivators would choose to rush over to the nearest superpower. B26 city, B27 city, B28 city. They finally arrived at the B29 city. Who? Dongbo Shuang and the group of cultivators flew out of the B29 city. In the distance, it was a vast expanse. Even though there were many people in the sacred world, compared to the vastness of the sacred world, it was still sparsely populated. Most of the living beings would gather under an expert. Everything was for the sake of survival. Elder Dongbo, even though the Golden Wing Nation is within the region controlled by the B29 city and is relatively close, we still have to travel through the void. It will take us about a year or so to reach the Golden Wing Nation. An Outer Hall elder said, "Our Deacon Jiuqi is at the Unity Realm. He is the fastest in the team and will bring us along." Deacon Jiuqi was originally a mutated beast. Now that he had transformed into a human, he had 9 heads. At this moment he was respectfully bowing. Dongbo Shuang looked at him before nodding. "All right, let's hurry." Reaching the sacred world in a year or so was considered very close. It was difficult to travel through the sacred world. After Deacon Jiuqi bowed respectfully, he began controlling the void to envelop everyone present before directly piercing through the void. Hoo. They continued moving forward in the void. "Stop," Dongbo Shuang instructed. Instantly, the team stopped and appeared in the void. The 2 Outer Hall elders looked at Dongbo Shuang with doubt. Deacon Jiuqi was also at a loss. "Let me bring all of you along," Dongbo Shuang said. As he spoke, he took the initiative to control the void to bring everyone along. So, while piercing through the void, the two outer hall elders and the group of outer hall deacons were astonished. It was too fast. This inner hall elder might only be at the origin birth realm, but his void evasion speed was over 10 times faster than Deacon Jiuqi, as expected of an inner hall elder. I thought that since inner hall elders are at the origin birth realm, their void evasion speed would be weak. I didn't expect it to be so terrifying. All of them were speechless. At this moment, Dongbo Shuang was using the communication token to gather information and find the location of the Golden Wing Nation. Even though he had a rough introduction of the 5 sacred worlds, a small nation like the Golden Wing Nation might be destroyed at any time. Hence, it wasn't recorded in the map. Only by using the communication token would he be able to find the location. Furthermore, in the future when the Golden Wing Nation is destroyed, the information obtained through the communication token would be altered. I was still wondering how fast that deacon's void evasion would be. It seems like he is only at the standard of an ordinary unity realm. Dongbo Shuang thought. As a void walker, his teleportation speed was already comparable to a unity realm expert when he reached the 21st level of Walker's hidden secret. Currently, he was at the 28th level. Amongst those at the unity realm, his void evasion speed was considered to be extremely powerful. However, there was always someone stronger. Dongbo Shuang knew that there were some heaven-defying unity realm experts, like the inner hall elders, who were extremely heaven-defying. They could even tear through time and space to travel. Their speed was much faster than his. I reckon that we will reach the Golden Wing Nation in a month. Dongbo Shuang calculated the distance and made his judgment. Golden Wing Nation. This was a nation that occupied an area of 5 million kilometers. The entire nation was a huge city, and the leader of the nation was a unity realm expert. But given how big the nation was, those void gods could ambush and devour it. They could even work together to resist against him. This gave the Golden Wing Nation king a huge headache. Currently, the entire Golden Wing Nation was in a state of panic. After all, a large number of cultivators would be devoured from time to time. Who would not panic? Within one of the residences in the Golden Wing Nation, a violet-haired black-robed male sat there with a mutated beast lying in his bosom. He indifferently said, "The team from the Celestial Water City will rush over in about a year's time. Continue creating panic, and make use of this opportunity to spread our ancient sacred religion. Those who believe in our ancient sacred religion will be protected, and the time limit for preaching will be limited to half a year. Half a year later, all of you will hide and not expose yourselves. Wait until the team from the Celestial Water City leaves before continuing to manage the Golden Wing Nation." The violet-haired black-robed male ordered. Yes, the 3 void gods by the side solemnly acknowledged. Chapter 835. After the 3 subordinates left, there was only the purple-haired black-robed male sitting alone in the courtyard. He was gently caressing the mutated beast's fur in his embrace. This mutated beast was squinting its eyes in comfort. Panic. The more you panic, the better. The purple-haired black-robed male muttered. Either perish in panic or become a member of the ancient sacred religion. It is your fortune to be qualified to worship the mighty sacred master. He did not place the Golden Wing King in his eyes at all. Currently, the strength they possess was completely above the Golden Wing King. If they truly wanted to devour the Golden Wing country, there would not be a single living being left in the country. They did not do so to devour. Instead, they did so to allow more cultivators to become members of the ancient sacred religion. Who? On a street with many densely packed mansions, a black figure suddenly appeared in midair and let out ear-piercing laughter, following which, a terrifying devouring force enveloped the mansions below. The cultivators within the mansions, including the mansions themselves, flew up and headed towards that black figure. No, it's a devil. It's the great devouring devil. A large number of living beings within the 5 mansions that were devoured were panicking. They had been living in fear for the past few days, afraid that those devils would devour them one day. However, they were consoling themselves. The Golden Wing country's cities were a total of 5 million miles. Under the suppression of the sacred world, the great devil could only devour a small region each time. It should not coincidentally devour them. But the nightmare still descended. Ah, no, no. The mournful voice spread out, causing countless residents in the surroundings to be incomparably terrified. Many of them reported to the Golden Wing Nation's royal family. But in a breath's time, the black figure in the sky had already disappeared. After a while, when the two protector elders arrived, they only saw a region where even the bricks had been devoured, and the surrounding residents were panicking. Damn it! It escaped too quickly. The two protector elders gritted their teeth in anger. A group of devils were hiding in various locations within the Golden Wing country, launching sneak attacks time after time. Every time they devoured a small region, they would immediately leave. In the entire Golden Wing country, there were cultivators being devoured at all times. The entire country was in a state of panic, but no one dared to escape from the Golden Wing country, because once they escaped, without the protection of the king, they would die even faster. At this time, a mysterious sect was also preaching. As long as one believed in the ancient saint religion, they would receive their protection. Those devils did not dare to offend the ancient sacred cult. The true god rulers, who were considered to be at the top of the Golden Wing Nation, were constantly being preached to. Some stubborn ones were even directly captured and forced to worship the ancient saint religion. If there were truly those who were captured and failed to convert, the only outcome for them would be death. Inside each cage, every single cage had a cultivator locked within, with the weakest being a true god ruler. There were even 2 void gods locked within. Hum. The surface of the cage emanated black light. Countless mysterious runes flowed on the cage, and formless sound waves continuously tunneled into the minds of the imprisoned cultivators. The imprisoned cultivators were all in great pain, struggling with great difficulty, and some who were originally struggling in agony gradually revealed a joyful look. They opened their eyes with a smile. There was even a strand of fanaticism in their eyes, and a black god imprint appeared on their forehead before disappearing. We have another brother. Let him out. The protector by the side immediately released those who had a black god imprint on their forehead. What exactly is this religion? Why is it so frightening that even rulers would submit to it? Within one of the cages, a muscular male was gritting his teeth and holding on. The unseen sound waves were tunneling into his soul, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. It was as if a dark maelstrom was about to devour his soul. As long as he did not resist, his soul would sink into it, and he would be able to escape from it. But how could he easily sink into it after becoming a ruler? No, this muscular male was forcefully holding on. This ancient sacred religion is too powerful. They have a secret technique that can trace our soul connection and destroy our other avatars. The more the muscular male thought about it, the more stifled he felt. He was originally a genius within the Golden Wing Nation, and had cultivated for a short period before becoming a ruler. He even planned to set off for the Celestial Water City with his wife in hopes of joining the Great Void Heaven Temple. Who would have thought that he would meet the terrifying ancient sacred religion before setting off? I wonder how Qing Rua is doing. She is smarter than me, and should not be so unlucky to be captured. The muscular male thought. He gritted his teeth and held on. Clearly, his cultivation heart was much stronger than the surrounding rulers, and he could still hold on. Dongbua Shuang brought along 2 outer hall elders and a group of outer hall deacons as they traveled through the void at high speed. We are reaching soon, Dongbua Shuang ordered. Everyone prepare yourselves. Yes, all of them acknowledged. This time, it was the inner hall elders who were leading the group, and none of them dared to slack off. They finally entered the region of the Golden Wing Nation. Very soon, Dongbua Shuang and a large group of people appeared in the sky above the Golden Wing Nation Royal Palace. There were a total of 33 of them, and all of them were void gods. 2 of them were at the Unity Realm, and they were releasing their auras wantonly. This was also an important place in the royal palace. Thus, Golden Wing Nation King immediately discovered them. Following that, he felt great joy. South Golden Wing Nation King brought along 3 protector elders and flew into the sky. He was incomparably respectful. Welcome, special envoy. He was slightly curious. From their attire, he could deduce that 30 of them were deacons, and 2 of them were outer hall elders. And who was that white-robed young man who seemed to be leading them? Activate the Golden Wing Nation protective array. From now on, forbid anyone from leaving. The moment anyone tries to break through the array and leave, you must immediately report to me. Dongbo Shuang ordered. Yes. Golden Wing Nation King immediately acknowledged respectfully. How you dealt with those devils in the past, do the same now. Go. Dongbo Shuang ordered. Yes. The 2 outer hall elders and 30 outer hall deacons acknowledged. Closely following that, they split into 4 teams. Each team was led by either an outer hall elder or a Unity Realm deacon. They rushed in all directions and began investigating and chasing after the devils. What identity does this white-robed young man have? It seems everyone listens to his orders. Golden Wing Nation King mumbled inwardly. Dongbo Shuang stood above the royal palace. He no longer cared about Golden Wing Nation King. Instead, he directly executed the cosmos-ranked absolute art, the plate ripple diagram. Having cultivated for close to 2 billion years in the Palace Hall of Time, his attainments in the plate ripple diagram were not any weaker than the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. Wang, an unseen ripple spread out in all directions with Dongbo Shuang at the center. It was extremely hard to investigate in the sacred world, especially when the cunning enemies would deliberately conceal their aura. Hence, some simple scouting techniques were useless. Most ordinary scouting techniques would rely on the law domain. Under the suppression of the sacred world, a Unity Realm expert's law domain could only cover an area of 5,000 kilometers. Even a Primal Chaos Realm giant's law domain would usually cover an area of 500,000 kilometers. This was their normal scouting range unless they knew an extremely powerful scouting secret technique. And the Cosmos-ranked Absolute Art Plate Ripple Diagram was the only Ripple Dao Cosmos-ranked Absolute Art in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple. It was also unquestionably the best scouting technique in the Great Void Heaven Temple. What is he doing? Golden Wing Nation King felt puzzled. He did not even sense Dongbo Shuang's scouting technique. The unseen ripple seemed to be one entity with the ordinary ripples in the world. It was stealthily probing, covering an area of 250,000 kilometers in an instant. This was also the current limit of what he could probe. The white-robed Dongbo Shuang stood there. He was meticulously investigating the aura of every single living being within the region of 250,000 kilometers. It was simply a dream for anyone to hide from his plate ripple diagram. Chapter 836. There is a void god hiding his aura. Capture him. Shuang directly transmitted over to an outer hall elder. He even sent over a map and an image of the appearance of that void god who concealed his aura. Dongbo Shuang then directly teleported. There were not many void gods in the entire Golden Wing Nation. Any unfamiliar void gods that were not recorded in the intelligence reports would be captured. As for whether he would capture the wrong person, he would then slowly filter through them after capturing all of them. Every single time, he could only scout an area of about 500,000 kilometers. He would then teleport to another region and continue scouting. The entire Golden Wing Nation spanned a total of 5 million kilometers. To search through it once, Dongbo Shuang had to execute the plate ripple diagram several hundred times. He had to do it carefully every single time, and it would take him an hour to finish. The rope descended. It directly enveloped the ugly male who had hidden his aura. The ugly male revealed a look of shock when he saw this. He did not care about anything else, and immediately turned into a stream of light in an attempt to escape. The rope traversed across the 500 kilometers of void and rapidly wrapped around the ugly male, binding him tightly. The 8 special emissaries from the Celestial Water City watched everything. It is really a void god hiding in the dark. Too formidable. Elder Dongbui is truly formidable. His scouting secret technique is much more profound than ours. The 2 outer hall elders and the 30 law enforcers formed a team of special emissaries who were slightly doubtful at first. They did not dare to disobey the orders of the inner hall elders. But when they truly acted, they discovered that every single capture was accurate. Within that secret residence, the violet-haired black-robed male was still hugging the mutated beast. Suddenly his expression changed. Sacred emissary, there is a low-ranked sacred follower who has been captured. It should be a team from the celestial water city. This was the first piece of news. The violet-haired black-robed male was in slight disbelief when he received the news. Impossible. We have just acted for a month. Even if Elder Qianyu personally led a team over, it should not be that fast. Unless it is the #1 expert in the Celestial Water City Elder Society, Elder Chunwu, who personally set off. How could it be? It is impossible for Elder Chunwu to act for such a small matter. He was clear. The 2 with the highest statuses in the Celestial Water City Elder Society were Elder Chunwu. He was an unparalleled existence in the Unity realm. Elder Qianyu was second, but he was also extremely terrifying. However, to reach the Golden Wing Nation in a mere month, only Elder Chunwu could travel through the void so quickly. However, the #1 expert of the Elder Group would not easily leave Tianshui City. Sacred Envoy. There are 2 low-leveled sacred followers that have been captured. It must be a team from the Celestial Water City, and they have Unity Realm existences. Furthermore, their combined combat power is extremely strong. Saint, a low-level holy disciple, has been captured. A total of 9 low-level holy disciples have been captured. News came one after another. The violet-haired black-robed male's expression changed. It was too fast. Every single low-ranked sacred disciple was at the void god level, and all of them had the hidden aura secret technique passed down by the ancient sacred religion. It was hard for them to be discovered if they were to hide. Now that the Heavenly Water City's team had just arrived, the holy disciples that were hiding in various parts of the Golden Wing country were discovered one after another. This was definitely not an ordinary Heavenly Water City's team. Not good. Although he believed that it was impossible for Elder Chunwu to come, he still understood that it was impossible. Pass down my orders. All holy apostles are to split into 3 teams and leave as soon as possible. The black-robed man ordered. Following that, he gave the order. The holy apostle experts within the Golden Wing Nation began moving, of which 3 holy apostles who knew how to teleport moved separately. They were rapidly teleporting to bring their other comrades, so that they could gather as soon as possible. The reason why they split into 3 teams was because there were only 3 holy apostles who knew how to teleport. They split into 3 gathering points and began gathering experts, of which the black-robed male's location was the core gathering point. There were 8 ordinary void gods stationed here, and at this moment, more void gods were willing to come, because following the sacred envoy was the safest during life and death moments. During the night, high up in the sky of the Golden Wing Nation, Dongbui Shuang stood in midair. He was releasing an unseen ripple and was investigating all movements. Suddenly, a figure tore through the void and passed through the region he was investigating. Amen. Dongbui Shuang's eyes brightened. Void penetration. He immediately chased after the other party stealthily. This figure tore through the void and arrived at a location. He immediately kept a comrade into his Eden treasure. Following that, he brought another comrade along. They are preparing to escape. Dongbui Shuang faintly felt that something was amiss because Devour-class devils were usually more selfish. They would not care about their comrades when escaping. They are gathering together and escaping. Aren't they afraid of being wiped out at the same time? Dongbui Shuang thought. Are they confident? He was following behind silently, relying on the plate ripple diagram. He was stealthily chasing after the other party. Very soon, the other party entered a residence. The moment he entered, he immediately released the 3 void gods he saved. The moment he checked this residence, it made the eyelids of Dongbui Shuang twitch, because there were a total of 15 ordinary void gods in this residence, and 2 at the Unity Realm. There were even a large number of rulers trapped in cages. Amen. As Dongbo Shuang was investigating, the mutated beast in the bosom of the black-robed violet-haired male suddenly raised its head and let out an ear-piercing goo sound. Not good. The expression of the black-robed male changed greatly. He knew that there was a terrifying enemy scouting in the dark. Being a sacred emissary, he could not detect it at all. This scouting technique was too frightening. Break the array and leave immediately. The black-robed male ordered. Yes. Hong, a dazzling black light immediately shot into the sky from within the residence. It directly charged against the enormous array above the Golden Wing Nation. But because Dongbo Shuang had given the order, this nation-protecting array was maintained at full force. For a moment, the black-robed male and the others could not break the array. But such a frightening disturbance had alarmed the entire Golden Wing Nation. Not far away, the team led by Deacon Jiuqi discovered this place. He immediately tore through the void and arrived in the blink of an eye. So many. Deacon Jiuqi was slightly excited. He did not need to investigate and discovered that there was a group of void gods within the residence. These void gods did not conceal their aura. Clearly, they were working together to break the array. Kill, Deacon Jiuqi ordered. Hong. He and the other 7 deacons behind him turned into a dazzling sword light. The enormous sword light charged downwards. The team from the Celestial Water City. At this moment, the black-robed male was leading his subordinates to break the array. After all, this was a nation-protecting array that the Golden Wing Nation had operated for many years. It was reinforced with many layers, and with their strength, they would need to attack 8 to 10 times before they could break it. Who would have thought that the team from the Celestial Water City would arrive so quickly? Kill them first. The eyes of the black-robed male immediately turned cold. The dazzling black light clashed with the enormous sword light. Dongbo Shuang displayed the plate ripple diagram and hid in the dark sky as he watched. He could easily determine the power of the other party's attack and knew that it could not threaten the lives of Deacon Jiuqi and the others. After all, Deacon Jiuqi and the others had grasped hold of the combination array passed down by the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was specially used for combat and was extremely powerful. Deacon Jiuqi was even at the Unity Realm and was not someone to be trifled with. Hung, the 2 surges of power clashed. For a moment, it swept across the entire place, causing the walls of the residence to shatter. Many cages appeared. The defenses of the cages were great, and with Dongbo Shuang protecting them in the dark, those prisoners within the cages were not injured at all. As for the surroundings of the residence, it had been controlled by Dongbo Shuang, allowing the ripples to dissipate, preventing any innocent lives from being affected. Deacon Jiuqi and the other 7 flew back to the sky. Their expressions were slightly ugly. So powerful. It seems they are stronger than us. And on the other side, the black-robed male led a large group of void gods behind him. He was also looking around him. The ripples from their battle had just charged out of the vicinity of the residence when they were dissipated unknowingly. This made the black-robed male feel pressured. He knew that there was an expert watching everything in the dark. Come out. Just the team under you can't deal against us. The black-robed male sneered. A white-robed young man appeared in the distant sky. Deacon Jiuqi and the other 7 flew over when they saw this. All of them were extremely respectful. Elder Dongbua. The white-robed young man looked over. How dare you be so unbridled in the Golden Wing Nation? The black-robed male let out a sigh of relief when he saw this because he could see that the white-robed young man was merely at the origin birth realm. He should be an outer hall elder, who should have cultivated some formidable scouting secret technique from the Great Void Heaven Temple. He was not afraid of the origin birth realm. You all must be mistaken. The black-robed male laughed. Those devils are unrelated to me. If I really want to devour them wantonly, do you think the Golden Wing Nation can stop me? Indeed, they can't stop you. The white-robed Dongbo Shuang nodded. Right. That is why you have wronged me, the black-robed male said. Why don't you let me go? I'm not willing to step into this muddy water. Those devils should die. All of you should die too, Dongbo Shuang said. The expression of the black-robed male changed. He said with a low voice, Why? Do you really want to continue fighting? The entire Golden Wing Nation might turn into ruins, and the majority of your subordinates would die too. There was silence. Deacon Jiuqi and the others also looked towards Dongbo Shuang. They could see that this was not an ordinary team of devils. Instead, it was a superpower that was organized. They even vaguely guessed it because they all saw those cages. Should he turn a blind eye? Or should he really continue to fight? This time, they were merely dealing against ordinary devils. If they were not strong enough, they would likely end up in a miserable state if they continued fighting. Within the cages, those survivors were also watching this scene. They saw that large group of void gods and the black-robed male. They also saw the white-robed young man and the 8 void gods facing each other in the sky. Unless they are afraid of the ancient sacred religion, they don't dare to act anymore. They were slightly anxious, yet they did not dare to speak. Because existences at this level were not people they could speak out of turn. Act. Kill them. Many of these cultivators who were imprisoned were extremely anxious, because they knew how big of a calamity the Golden Wing Nation was facing during this period. Everything originated from this group of existences, from the ancient sacred religion. You all can continue killing those devils, and we will leave. How about it? The black-robed male said with a smile. Dongbo Shuang, who was high in the sky, looked carefully. If I didn't guess wrong, you should be from the ancient sacred religion? The expression of the black-robed male changed. The expressions of his subordinates behind him also changed, including Deacon Jiuqi. All of them felt their hearts tightening. He actually said it out loud. If he said it out loud, there would no longer be any leeway. According to the rules of my great void heaven temple, any disciple of the ancient sacred religion must be killed without mercy. The white-robed Dongbo Shuang said. His voice reverberated across the world. Kill. The black-robed male roared. He brought his subordinates and charged into the sky. The white-robed Dongbo Shuang looked downwards. He extended his hand and pointed. Shwa shwa shwa. Thousands of densely packed terminus soldiers transformed into dark purple fish. Thousands of dark purple fish blotted out the sky and covered the earth, directly enveloping the black-robed man and his group of subordinates. Those cultivators in the cages looked upwards. They saw that white-robed young man extending his hand and pointing, causing a large number of violet fishes to envelop the group of experts from the ancient sacred religion with a destructive aura. They could not help but feel excited. Chapter 837. The black-robed male and his group of subordinates were looking at the thousands of violet fishes in terror. Shwa shwa shwa. They were like arrows arcing through the sky. They were too fast. Even though they had yet to come into contact, those subordinates could feel their souls trembling. The gap between their realms was too big. These dark purple fishes were able to kill Unity experts like chopping melons and vegetables, let alone them. Ah, no, Sacred Master. All of them were in complete despair. A large number of violet fishes had penetrated through their bodies. They contained the profound mysteries of destruction from the Tao of slaughter, and easily destroyed their bodies. Almost just a single penetration had caused other than the black-robed male, and the mutated beast in his embrace, the other subordinates to turn into nothingness. Only some weapons and other treasures fell down. The black-robed male felt a chill down his spine. He was so frightened that he immediately teleported. He is just an origin birth realm void god. How could he be so strong? As he teleported, there were a total of more than 100 violet fishes that penetrated through the void chasing after him. Poo. The black-robed male did not have the time to dodge. As he teleported through the void, those violet fishes had already bombarded on his body. Nevertheless, there was a layer of black light on the surface of his body that resisted against those attacks. The black-robed male could feel the power of those violet fishes clashing against the protective god light. He could not help but feel terrified. Fortunately, it is fortunate that Elder Brother has bestowed me with a protective treasure. Otherwise, I would have died just now. The black-robed male had a savage look on his face. He appeared from nothingness and stared at Dongbo Shuang, who was in midair. Oh, he actually didn't die. The white-robed Dongbua Shueying was slightly startled as he watched from afar. "Go kill him." The black-robed male threw out the mutated beast in his embrace. He had a savage look on his face. His eyes were filled with fury. He had almost died. After that mutated beast flew out, it immediately let out an ear-piercing gua sound. Its eyes stared at Dongbua Shueying, and traces of lightning appeared in the surrounding void. The might of these lightning bolts caused Deacon Jiuqi and the other experts to feel fearful. To be able to display such might under the suppression of the laws of the sacred world, this mutated beast's strength was considered terrifying even amongst Unity Realm experts. On the other hand, the white-robed Dongbua Shueying was still calmly watching everything. The strange beast's body was covered in glossy black fur. Its four hooves suddenly stepped on the void, instantly disappearing and charging over. "Set!" Dongbua Shueying shouted. "Chi chi chi!" Countless fine ripples that could be seen by the naked eye tunneled into the void. At the same time, the densely packed dark purple fishes also entered the void and vanished. In just an instant, that mutated beast appeared in the void. It was entangled by countless translucent fine ripples, while the densely packed dark purple fishes frantically tunneled into its body, destroying its body. It roared and struggled with all its might, causing many of the fine ripples to collapse. However, at the same time, the fine ripples continued to entangle it, causing it to be unable to use its full strength to defend against the attacks of the termination energy fishes. The termination energy fishes continued to enter its body. Under the encirclement of over 1,000 dark purple fishes, its struggles rapidly weakened. Very soon it calmed down. It had already turned into nothingness, leaving behind only the storage ring and other items. What a powerful mutated beast. It should be at the pinnacle of the Unity Realm, Dongbua Shueying thought. If it was before I cultivated the plate ripple diagram, I would probably have to engage in close combat to have a chance of victory. Plate ripple diagram, the ultimate absolute art of the Tao of waves. In terms of domains, it was unquestionably the strongest in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Being the strongest domain type absolute art, coupled with the fish dragon kill that Dongbua Shueying created for the sake of getting through the third level of Star Pagoda. This area of effect killing technique, coupled with his strongest domain type absolute art, was miraculously effective. The peak Unity Realm mutated beast was killed just like that. Too terrifying. Is this the strength of Elder Dongbua? Deacon Jiuqi and the other deacons watched with shock as the countless dark purple fishes tunneled into the mutated beast's body before turning it into nothingness. They could see the strength of the mutated beast. When the mutated beast erupted with its strength, they felt a dense threat. It was only then that they knew that this was the most terrifying mutated beast in the group of experts from the ancient sacred religion. But in the end, Elder Dongbo just stood there. From start to finish, he had been standing in midair, yet he still easily killed his enemies. Even if it is at the origin birth realm, Elder Dongbua is indeed an inner hall elder. If he wants to kill us, he would likely be able to do so in a breath of time. Deacon Jiuqi and the others were both shocked and impressed. The strength of cultivators was that the strong were respected, so they would naturally respect the strong more. In the many cages in the ruins, the cultivators imprisoned in the cages were filled with resentment towards the ancient saint cult. However, they could also sense the terrifying strength of the ancient saint cult's experts. However, the white-robed young man in the sky, who did not seem to have a strong aura, did not even move. He merely pointed his finger, and countless fishes descended. A large group of experts from the ancient sacred religion was killed. Even the mutated beast that appeared later on, one that was much more terrifying than the Golden Wing Nation King, was easily killed by the white-robed young man. This unfathomable strength made them both excited and shocked. He was too powerful. No. The black-robed male was stunned when he saw this. This mutated beast was sent by his elder brother to follow him. It might look like a pet, but it was actually there to protect him. In terms of strength, it was definitely at the pinnacle of the Unity Realm. This mutated beast could easily swallow 100 ordinary Unity Realm experts. According to what he knew, in the entire Celestial Water City, Only Elder Chun Wu could easily kill this mutated beast. Even if Elder Qian Yu personally made a move, the mutated beast would still be able to resist. But this white-robed young man, who was merely at the origin birth realm, was actually so terrifying. He is an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The black-robed male had also guessed it. Since he was already so terrifying at the origin birth realm, he must be an inner hall elder. Saying it was slow, a thought flashed in the black-robed male's mind. Following which he shouted with a mighty voice, "Who are you?" The white-robed Dongbua Shuang looked down at the black-robed male. He looked at the protective black radiance on the surface of the black-robed male's body. He should have something similar to a life-saving talisman. However, once the energy is depleted, he won't be able to hold on any longer. With a thought from Dongbua Shuang, the densely packed dark purple fishes immediately turned around and attacked the black-robed male. When the black-robed male saw this, he gritted his teeth in anger. He glared at Dongbua Shuang with a ferocious gaze. Wang! A terrifying spatial ripple enveloped him and forcefully teleported him away. So, when the black-robed male was teleported away, he was still looking at Dongbua Shuang with killing intent and anger. It disappeared? Dongbua Shuang frowned. The spatial ripple had completely disappeared. Furthermore, it had disappeared to an extremely far distance. It had exceeded the range of his senses. I can't believe the biggest fish managed to escape. Dongbua Shuang could guess that since this black-robed male was able to command so many subordinates, he should be a sacred envoy of the ancient sacred religion. However, he actually managed to escape. He has a protective treasure and an escape treasure. He is definitely not an ordinary sacred envoy. Dongbua Shuang felt slightly vexed. Killing a sacred envoy would reward him with contribution points. The higher the status of the sacred envoy, the greater the reward. Regardless of whether it was for treasures to aid his cultivation or for cultivating in the Palace Hall of Time, he required a huge amount of contribution points. It's a pity that a sacred envoy had escaped. But he had no choice. The other party's protective god light could not even be shaken by his fish dragon kill. Furthermore, the other party had escaped far beyond the range of his senses. This kind of sacred envoy with a sufficiently high status had formidable survivability too. It was hard to kill him. Who? Dongbua Shuang descended. With a wave of his hand, he kept all the treasures of those dead void gods. At the same time, he turned around and ordered, Deacon Jiuqi, protect the surroundings properly. Nobody is allowed to enter or leave the region of this residence ruins. Wait for me to investigate it thoroughly. Yes, Deacon Jiuqi respectfully acknowledged. He knew that this matter involved the ancient sacred religion and could not be careless. Dongbua Shuang was instead looking in two other directions. There were battles going on in the other two directions, though it seemed that his side was about to win. Dongbua Shuang's figure flashed before leaving through the void. Chapter 838. The members of the ancient sacred religion were split into 3 gathering grounds, of which the black-robed male was at the strongest location and had been dealt with by Dongbua Shuang. The other 2 locations were much weaker. They did not even have a single Unity Realm expert. Even though they had the secret collaboration array from the ancient sacred religion, the collaboration array technique passed down by the Great Void Heaven Temple was not weak. Furthermore, the team from the Great Void Heaven Temple was stronger. The reason why they fought until now was because they knew from Dongbua Shuang that the enemies were members of the ancient sacred religion. Hence they planned to capture them alive. Who? Dongbua Shuang used the void maneuver to rush towards one of the gathering grounds. Over there, a team from the Celestial Water City was currently trapping 9 void gods from the ancient sacred religion. But it would take some time for them to capture them alive. We can't escape anymore. We can't escape anymore. What should we do? Let's fight. Every one of us who dies counts. For the sake of Sacred Master, kill. These void gods were slightly fanatical, and Dongbua Shuang stealthily appeared. He immediately executed the plate ripple diagram. For a moment, many transparent strands appeared from nothingness. They wrapped around the body of every void god, and even permeated into the bodies of the enemies to seal their souls. But these void gods were extremely vigilant. When they felt energy permeating into their bodies, some of them actually chose to self-destruct. Hong Hong Hong, 6 of the 9 void gods did not hesitate to self-destruct. A terrifying power swept out in all directions before being suppressed by the ripples. Only 3 void gods reacted slightly slower, and their souls were sealed by Dongbua Shuang. They are all madmen. Dongbua Shuang frowned when he saw this. Ancient sacred religion, ancestor mother religion. Ancient sacred religion, ancestor mother religion. They were 2 extremely terrifying superpowers that spread across the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void. Behind the ancient sacred religion was a final realm existence, and also an existence that occupied the ancient sacred world, Sacred Master. And the ancestor mother religion was easy to guess. The ancestor mother religion believed in ancestor mother, who occupied the ancestor mother world of the 5 great sacred worlds. These 2 sects were like cancerous tumors. The moment they entered a religion, they believed in sacred master or ancestor mother. They would be absolutely loyal. For example, after entering the ancient saint cult, the saint masters would surpass everything. For the saint master, they would be willing to die. Even if it was their loved ones, they would not hesitate to kill them for the saint master. He didn't even hesitate to commit suicide. This is a very sad thing. Cultivators who were slightly ambitious would not be willing to join the ancient sacred religion or the ancestor mother religion. But the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion were too formidable. The other 3 great sacred world superpowers did not hesitate. If they discovered the ancient sacred religion or the ancestor mother religion, they would be killed without mercy. Naturally, the cultivation system had little to do with the religion. For instance, the ancient cultivation system could be found everywhere. Even the ancestor mother religion cultivation system would not be affected during the early stages of cultivation. If one felt that something was amiss, he could give up on the ancestor mother religion cultivation system and focus on other systems. But the moment his soul was branded with the ancient sacred imprint or the ancestor mother imprint, he would be doomed. Want to save them? However, there was still a chance of survival under the operation of the laws. For example, the Sacred Lord would take the initiative to retract his imprint, or the heaven-defying ancient cultivators could reverse the flow of time and change the past slightly. The past could be changed. This was a terrifying thing, but it could only be changed to a small extent. The area of influence had to be small, and the weaker the cultivators involved, the better. Regardless, the moment his soul was branded, he would be doomed. It would be hard for cosmos gods to save him. Elder Dongbua. The 8 special emissaries from the celestial water city immediately bowed respectfully. They self-destructed so easily. Dongbua Shuang looked at the ruins below. With a wave of his hand, he kept all the treasures left behind after the self-destruction. He even kept those 3 who were captured alive. The battle at the final assembly point had ended. Dongbua Shuang and the others had already returned to the ruined residence where the black-robed male was previously at. This was after all the core location of the enemies. Dongbua Shuang looked at the 5 void gods who had their strength sealed and were captured alive. Their personal treasures had been taken away. Dongbua Shuang immediately ordered, "Lock the 5 of them, along with those void gods we captured at the start. After that, bring them back to the celestial water city." Yes. The 2 outer hall elders and the 30 law enforcers respectfully acknowledged. Golden Wing Nation King added from the side, "This ancient sacred religion actually dares to spread their religion in my Golden Wing Nation. Elder Dongbua, if you have any instructions, feel free to tell me. I'll definitely do my best." Dongbua Shuang glanced at him. Golden Wing Nation King felt his heart trembling. During this month, he had actually gradually found out that the ancient sacred religion had infiltrated in, but he could only feign ignorance about this matter. The ancient sacred religion and the ancestor mother religion were 2 superpowers that could fight head-on against the other 3 great sacred worlds. They could casually send out some lackeys and they could easily wipe out their Golden Wing nation. How would he dare to intervene? As long as the ancient sacred religion was not too arrogant, he would act as though he did not discover anything. Search thoroughly for me. See if you can find any traces of this ancient sacred religion. Dong Buishuang ordered. He casually entered a nearby residence. This residence was comparable to the base of the ancient sacred religion and was naturally luxurious. But currently, the Golden Wing Nation King had arranged for the original owner to temporarily leave, allowing the team of envoys to rest. Dong Buishuang entered the house. With a wave of his hand, he took out all the treasures he obtained from killing the members of the ancient sacred religion. He began refining them and inspecting them thoroughly, searching for any traces. I hope I can find some clues and locate the important base of the ancient sacred religion. Dong Buishuang thought. The base in the Golden Wing Nation was considered a small-scale base. There must be an even more important base. As long as he found it, the greater the contribution points he contributed, the more contribution points he would get. Dong Buishuang did not dislike having too many treasures. Those cultivators who were imprisoned in the cages were released one by one. They were interrogated. These cultivators were relatively famous in the Golden Wing Nation. In addition, they had suffered greatly in the cages. Hence, they were relatively trustworthy. After the interrogation, they were released one by one. But they could not leave temporarily. They had to stay in the Golden Wing Nation Royal Palace and wait for a more thorough investigation. Too formidable. He is addressed as Elder Dongbua. Even our king has to be careful in front of him. He is so frighteningly formidable. Shwa shwa shwa. A dense number of fishes flew down, killing so many void gods. Those cultivators who were released felt much more relaxed. Since they could not leave temporarily, they were discussing in groups of 2s and 3s. Of which, there was a muscular male who was currently looking around. His face was filled with anxiety. Qing Rua isn't around. She should not have been caught. Because the communication items had been taken away previously, he could not send out any messages. Wang. The muscular male had regained his strength after being released from the seal. At this moment, he began executing his secret technique. He was a genius from the Golden Wing Nation, and his wife was even more dazzling than him. Other than tempering themselves, the two of them had a fortuitous encounter too. That fortuitous encounter had transformed their souls, and at the same time, formed a faint connection between their souls. He executed his secret technique, and tried his best to sense with his soul. Not good. The expression of the muscular male changed. He relied on his soul to sense it. He could sense that the soul of his wife was very far away from here. She was very far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Furthermore, she was rushing over at an extremely fast speed. With such a fast speed, she must have penetrated through the void. And his wife was a ruler. She could not penetrate through the void. Unless, the muscular male immediately guessed it. His expression could not help but change. He immediately walked towards the 2 outer hall elders, who seemed to be leading the group of void gods in the celestial water city. He respectfully said to one of them, "Senior, I wish to meet Elder Dongbua." "You wish to meet Elder Dongbua?" The 2 outer hall elders looked at this muscular male who had just been rescued. Not everyone is qualified to meet Elder Dongbua. What a joke! That was an inner hall elder of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He had an extremely high status in the 5 great sacred worlds. Even primal chaos realm giants had to treat him seriously. It's related to the ancient sacred religion. The muscular male transmitted. The 2 outer hall elders exchanged glances. "I'll bring him to meet Elder Dongbua. You follow me." The outer hall elder with a single jade green horn on his head said. He brought the muscular male and rushed over to meet Dong Buishuang. He was not worried. A true god ruler, who did not have any treasures or weapons, would not pose any threat to him. Within the residence by the side, within the hall, there was a huge pile of items placed on the ground. White-robed Dong Buishuang was currently seated by the side. Many items were floating in front of him. He was carefully checking through them, yet he frowned. Clearly, he did not find anything. The base where the ancient sacred religion infiltrated was an extremely secretive place. It would not be easily leaked out. Amen. Dongbua Shuang looked outside the hall. Outside the hall, the single-horned outer hall elder brought a muscular male in. That muscular male directly said, "Elder Dongbua, I know where that leader of the ancient sacred religion, the black-robed man, is at." The eyes of Dongbua Shuang brightened. Chapter 839. The single-horned outer hall elder looked at the muscular man with dissatisfaction. This puny ruler actually spoke before he even spoke. Reporting to Elder Dongbua, he is called Lei Chen. He is one of the cultivators that was captured and imprisoned by the ancient saint religion. He is a rather famous genius cultivator in the Golden Wing Nation. His wife's innate talent is above his. The single-horned outer hall elder said respectfully. He was in charge of the investigation previously. With his incredible memory, he naturally remembered everything clearly. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head and looked at the muscular true god ruler. A genius cultivator? His wife's innate talent was above his? Do you know where the saint envoy of the ancient saint religion is? Shuang asked. Are you confident? Currently he is fleeing in panic. As for where he is fleeing to, I'm afraid other than himself, no one else can be sure. I am more than 90% confident. The muscular man Lei Chen replied. Speak clearly. Dongbua Shuang said. The muscular man Lei Chen looked at the white-robed young man and couldn't help but feel nervous and anxious. He was clear that with his current strength, he wouldn't be able to save his wife. As for the ancient saint religion, it was rumored that it was related to the supreme saint master of the ancient saint world. In front of such a huge and terrifying power, he was just a puny ant. Let alone him. Even the Golden Wing Nation king, who was thousands of times stronger, would be an ant. The white-robed young man in front of him had an extremely high status. He was an expert from the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even the other special envoys of the Celestial Water City and the Golden Wing Nation king were very respectful to him. Only he would be able to save his wife. He couldn't miss this opportunity. In order to save his wife, he was willing to do anything. Elder Dongbua, Lei Chen said respectfully, my wife Qing Rua and I have been cultivating step by step. We have experienced many dangers, but we also had fortuitous encounters. One of the fortuitous encounters caused my wife and my soul to undergo a transformation. Furthermore, we could faintly sense each other's soul. If we were to execute a secret technique to sense each other, the distance we could sense each other would be extremely far. When I was rescued by Elder Dongbo from the ancient sacred cult, I immediately sensed my wife's location after the seal was lifted, and my strength recovered. However, I discovered that my wife was actually extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Furthermore, it was moving forward at an extremely fast speed. With such a terrifying speed, it must be shuttling through the void. Qing Rua is only a ruler, so there's no way she can teleport. She must have been taken away by some other expert. Golden Wing Nation, who would take her away, and it could even teleport. Furthermore, it is extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Lei Chen said. I can only think of one possibility. I was captured. My wife, Qin Rua's talent is above mine, and she is famous in the Golden Wing Nation. I'm afraid that the ancient sacred cult did not let her off and captured her as well. Moreover, because my wife is highly valued by that sacred emissary, she might be imprisoned in that sacred emissary's Eden. After saying that, Lei Chen looked at Dongbua Shuang. He was nervous. Whether to rescue her or not, it would depend on the decision of this mysterious Great Void Heaven Temple Elder Dongbo. Would he agree? If he were to rescue her, would he face danger? Would this Elder Dongbo be willing to take the risk? It is extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation. Shuttling through the void, Dongbua Shuang was pondering. In the entire Golden Wing Nation, the number of people that could teleport could be counted with one's fingers. The rest had either died in battle, or were still in the Golden Wing Nation. Only the black-robed man had escaped. To appear at a location that was extremely far away from the Golden Wing Nation, it was extremely hard to travel through the void normally. This was because he had spent a month rushing over from B29 City. That black-robed man had executed an ultra-long distance void teleportation to escape. This was also in line with this deduction. Furthermore, when Lei Chen sensed the black-robed man was still rushing over. In addition, the ancient sacred cult placed great importance on those who were extremely strong or talented. They wanted to make them believe in the ancient sacred cult. Hence, that sacred emissary had captured the talented Qing Ruo and personally controlled her. This was normal. Oh, Dongbua Shuang looked at Lei Chen and chuckled. But how do I know what you said is true? None of what I said is false. Lei Chen became anxious. Elder Dongbo I. His original anxious expression and surging emotions suddenly changed. Because Dongbua Shuang had stealthily lured his soul into the illusory realm. He had long grasped the mirage law system, and his attainments in this aspect were relatively profound. If it were some of the more foolish void god-level void creatures, they would fall for it, much less Lei Chen, who was merely a ruler. He had unknowingly fallen into it. Let me ask you, you and your wife. Dongbua Shuang continued. The single-horned outer hall elder felt slightly puzzled. Following that, he discovered with shock that this ruler called Lei Chen was currently answering him numbly. After a moment, Lei Chen felt his soul jolting. He had completely woken up, but he still felt vague about what had happened. He looked at this white-robed young man in front of him with slight shock. He was not too clear what had happened, but he understood one point. This white-robed young man must have done something to him. But at this moment, for the sake of saving his wife, he did not have any complaints. All right, you should first refine an avatar. After that, we will immediately set off. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang said. No need. We have to hurry. Lei Chen anxiously replied. Chasing after them requires time. We don't lack this bit of time. Dongbua Shuang frowned and roared. Go. Lei Chen was anxious, yet he could only accept the order and retreat. Following that, he used his fastest speed to nurture a fleshy embryo and split his soul into two. Furthermore, time was accelerated. Just half an hour later, he was brought by the single-horned outer hall elder to meet Dongbua Shuang. I want to chase after the ancient sacred religion. Dongbua Shuang looked at the single-horned outer hall elder and instructed. You guys will settle the matters here. After which, we will return to Celestial Water City. Yes. Although the single-horned outer hall elder was slightly worried, he did not dare to refute and immediately complied. Let's go. Dongbua Shuang brought Lei Chen and set off through the night. In the night sky, the moon of the sacred world hung high. Dongbua Shuang brought Lei Chen to the sky above the Golden Wing country. The Golden Wing country city was still enveloped by a nation-protecting array. Where is that black-robed sacred emissary? How far is he roughly from here? Dongbua Shuang asked. Reporting to Elder Dongbua, Lei Chen waved his hand, and a huge map appeared in front of him. On the map, a region was marked out. He said softly, because it is too far away, my senses are slightly blurry. I can only confirm that it is roughly this region. Your senses are too blurry. Dongbua Shuang shook his head. This region was truly huge, but Dongbua Shuang was still slightly startled. He was startled because the black-robed sacred emissary had teleported to such a great distance. His life-saving teleportation treasure seems to be more effective than the teleportation talisman of my great void heaven temple. Dongbua Shuang thought. As long as the distance is close, my senses will be clearer. Lei Chen said. Go. Dongbua Shuang brought him along as they traveled through the void. Even though he still had the teleportation talisman from when he was a golden-robed disciple, the teleportation distance was too great. The laws and profound mysteries involved were beyond what he could control. The teleportation talisman should have been personally refined by a primal chaos giant, or even Forefather Tianyu. Once the power was depleted, it would explode. The moment the energy was depleted, the talisman would have to be replenished naturally. Even though he had another treasure that was more suitable for teleportation, he was not in a rush to use it unless it was necessary. After all, his goal was to track the black-robed sacred emissary and find the important base of the ancient sacred religion. He chased along the way. Other than using the teleportation treasure at the start, the black-robed sacred emissary spent the rest of his time traveling through the void. Being a powerful cultivator, he did not care about the flow of time. He even spent more than 600 years not going to the nearest B29 city. Instead, he deliberately took a detour to the relatively further A29 city. The guards of A29 city did not know that this black-robed man was from the ancient sacred religion. Naturally, they let him pass. Dongbua Shuang was afraid that something might happen. He was forced to use his teleportation treasure to chase after the black-robed man to A29 city. Relying on the teleportation city, he finally arrived at A35 city. After that, he traveled through the void for another 19 years. We have arrived. The black-robed sacred emissary looked at an unremarkable black city that appeared in the distance. The entire city occupied an area of just 50,000 kilometers. It seemed to be a small superpower, but in reality, this was an important base of the ancient sacred religion. This time, all my subordinates have died. The black-robed sacred emissary was slightly vexed. Over the long years, I have completed many missions and was about to become a high sacred emissary. Who would have thought that all my subordinates have died this time? I wonder how long I will have to wait before I can become a high sacred emissary. There was a strict hierarchy within the ancient sacred religion. It was extremely difficult to rise by one rank. That elder Dongbua? The black-robed sacred emissary's eyes were filled with rage. But he knew that although the ancient sacred world was stronger than the Great Void Heaven Temple, this was the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. But this was the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. If he truly wanted to fight, he could not win against that elder Dongbo. Hence, he could only endure. South, the black-robed sacred emissary transformed into a beam of light and flew into the Black City. After the time taken to brew a cup of tea, two figures appeared in the night sky. They were none other than Dongbua Shui Ying and Lei Chen. After more than 600 years of tracking, I have finally found this place. Dongbua Shuang looked at the Black City in the distance and revealed a smile. Chapter 840. Dongbua Shuang knew that the ancient sacred religion had a total of 90 important strongholds in the seven-star oceanic sacred world. Based on the fact that the Great Void Heaven Temple's territory took up 1/3 of the seven-star oceanic sacred world, there should be around 30 strongholds within the Great Void Heaven Temple's territory. These strongholds were of the same status, and all of them were directly connected to the ancient sacred world. The members of a stronghold would not know anything about another stronghold. Therefore, even if he could destroy one stronghold, he would not be able to destroy all of them. However, there were only 30 strongholds in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple's territory. If he could destroy one of them, it would definitely be a huge contribution. Dongbua Shuang glanced at Lei Chen. It's all thanks to him. He and his wife can actually sense each other's soul. Elder Dongbua, please save my wife. I can sense that my wife's soul is still sealed. She is sealed, so she definitely did not submit. Lei Chen said. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head. That black-robed sacred envoy had been escaping all the way, so he most likely did not have the time to control the people he had imprisoned. We might have to fight next. You can stay in my Eden for now. As Dongbua Shuang spoke, he waved his hand and kept Lei Chen. Lei Chen also obediently allowed himself to be kept. At this moment, he could only hope that this elder Dongbua would be able to save his wife. This was the only thing he could do. After all, he was too weak. He would not be able to participate in a battle of that level. After keeping Lei Chen, Dongbua Shuang cast his gaze towards the Black City below. Within the Black City, in a dark hall, a man and a woman were sitting opposite each other. Both of them were not normal humans. The man's entire body was covered in a layer of frost armor, and his face was covered with white scales. As for the woman, she was a six-armed alluring woman. Both of their auras naturally filled the entire hall. Sacred Envoy Qi Yin is about to arrive. The man with the frost armor held onto a wine cup. The wine cup was filled with amber-like wine, and the fragrance of the wine permeated the air. Sacred Envoy Qi Yin is really miserable this time. The six-armed woman's eyes flashed with lightning. He's worked hard to lead his subordinates to preach, and his elder brother even gave him a mutant beast to help him. He's accumulated quite a bit of merit in these long days, and he's not far from being promoted to High Holy Envoy. But this time, he had lost all of his men. It was one thing for the mutated beast to die in battle. After all, it wasn't his subordinate. However, the other holy disciples had all been groomed to be suitable for preaching. Now that they were all dead, his credit was greatly reduced. I really don't know how long it will take for him to become a high divine envoy, and he will also need his brother's help. Don't rejoice in his misfortune. In the end, he is still Saint Wang Ming's younger brother, the man with the frost aura said. Humph. The six-armed alluring woman laughed. The rules of the ancient saint cult were very strict. In order to become a superior sacred envoy, one's strength had to reach the peak of the unity realm. Of course, there was another way to ascend within the sect, to accumulate enough merits. The black-robed male was indeed slightly weak, but with the help of his elder brother, he had many formidable helpers, and was about to become a high divine envoy. Furthermore, after he became a high divine envoy, with the help of his elder brother, he would definitely have more authority than most high divine envoys, and would obtain more benefits. Even though the frost male and the six-armed alluring woman felt jealous, they could only watch as everything happened. They did not dare to sabotage in the dark. They could only watch as the black-robed male continued to accumulate merits. Now that they had failed, the two of them felt great in their hearts. But they were delighted inwardly. They did not dare to do so openly. Saint Wang Ming, what was a saint? In the ancient sacred cult, only primal chaos giants were qualified to be called saints. Naturally, those Unity Realm experts who could fight against primal chaos realm experts were qualified to be called saints. Using the Star Pagoda to judge, they had to at least reach the 6th level of Star Pagoda. Even the Great Void Heaven Temple did not have a single Unity Realm expert who could get through the 6th level of Star Pagoda. Even the Great Void Heaven Temple could not do it despite being very good at fighting against those of a higher level. One could see that it was unfathomable for a Unity Realm expert to fight against even the weakest Primal Chaos Realm expert. Who? A figure flew into the palace hall from afar. It was that black-robed male. His expression was currently ugly. The frost male and six-armed woman immediately stood up to welcome him. Younger brother Qi Yun. The frost male walked over. His face that was covered in white scales was filled with heartache. Why are you so unlucky? Younger brother Qi Yun, you are so close to becoming a high sacred envoy. Yet you have suffered such a huge loss. The six-armed woman added, Brother Qi Yun, don't be anxious. This time we have suffered a huge loss, and our merits have been reduced by a lot. But we can take it slow. This elder sister will definitely do her best to help you. The two of them were sneering behind the other party's back. They were relatively carefree, but at this moment, they were wholeheartedly working for this black-robed male. That damnable elder Dongbo, the black-robed male directly sat down. He picked up the wine flask beside him and started drinking. After drinking a mouthful of pain, he suddenly placed the flask down. The flask smashed onto the table with a pung. He gritted his teeth. It is this elder Dongbo who spoiled my plans. I have just been on the mission for a month, and he actually arrived. The frost male sat by the side and said, I have already investigated. The religion has also spread the information that this elder Dongbo is called Dongbo Shuang. It is said that he is an amazing genius who came from a certain cosmos in the primal chaos void. He became a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple in that cosmos. It is said that he came from the same cosmos as Ancestor Devil and Sword Master. Ancestor Devil and Sword Master? The black-robed male snorted inwardly. Ancestor Devil was the Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Sword Master was even one of the final realm existences. Furthermore, he came to the Great Void Heaven Temple for less than 100 million years before becoming a void god. Furthermore, he passed through the 3rd level of Star Pagoda and became an inner hall elder. The frost male helplessly said, An origin birth realm inner hall elder would definitely be treated as a treasure by the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, this is the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. We can't win against him. It is normal for the incarnations of Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master to descend at the crucial moment. The black-robed male felt anxious. He knew that he could not win against the other party in terms of direct combat strength. He could not win against the supporting force behind them either. Even though the ancient sacred religion was strong, this was ultimately the territory of the Great Void Heaven Temple. They could only develop in the dark and could not fight against the other party directly. He was furious and anxious, but he could only endure. Wait, there will be a day, there will be a day. The black-robed male thought. He could only roar in his heart. He did not say it out, because he was afraid of being ridiculed by his companions. Even he knew that he no longer had the chance to take revenge. Younger brother Qi Yin, you should rest first. The matter of spreading the religion isn't urgent. The frost male said. The black-robed male nodded. He had to contact his elder brother too, because the mutated beast had died in battle, and he did not have any powerful subordinates. It was hard for him to spread the religion just by relying on some sacred disciples. They had to have sufficiently powerful experts before the efficiency of spreading the religion could be greatly increased. Come, accompany me for a drink, the black-robed male Qi Yin said. All right. Come. Big sister has plenty of good wine. The two of them were clearly the highest authority in this base. They were both upper sacred emissaries, yet they were polite to a lower sacred emissary and did not dare to offend him. They had just drunk for a short while. The expression of the six-armed girl changed slightly. She transmitted, "Be careful. The warning array has discovered a void god and a true god ruler appearing outside the city. They are currently spying on us in the dark. Oh, that true god ruler has been kept into his Eden. His appearance should be that Elder Dong Bo whom we investigated previously." Elder Dong Bo? That origin birth realm inner hall elder? The expression of the frost male changed. The eyes of the black-robed male were filled with killing intent. Even though Dongbua Shuang was vigilant, he had too little contact with the ancient sacred religion. This was ultimately the #1 superpower in the 5 great sacred worlds. Sacred Master was an existence that could become enemies with almost all final realm existences. At the moment he arrived, he had been discovered by the warning array of this black city. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.